Hi, guys. Imagine you are standing at the very edge of a long, gravel driveway in the quiet countryside of the late 1880s. The sun is beginning its slow descent behind the rolling hills, casting long, amber shadows across the manicured lawns. Before you stands a Victorian mansion, a towering monument of stone, wood, and iron. It looks majestic, like a dream carved out of the landscape. But as you look closer, you realize that this grand facade is just the beginning of a very long, very slow, and very quiet story. The air around you is perfectly still. There is no sound of engines, no hum of electricity, only the faint, distant rustle of leaves in the oak trees. The gravel beneath your feet is cool, and as you take a slow step forward, the sound of the stones shifting is the loudest thing in the world. You are moving toward the massive front doors made of heavy, dark oak, polished until they reflect the fading light like a mirror. This is the grand illusion, the belief that inside these walls, everything is perfect, everything is still, and time has simply stopped moving. As you reach the porch, the scent of the evening air changes. It is no longer just the smell of grass and earth. It is now the scent of old wood, and the faint, lingering aroma of coal smoke hanging in the cool air. You place your hand on the brass doorknob. It is heavy, and surprisingly cold to the touch. As the door swings open, it doesn't creak. It moves with a slow, weighted silence, inviting you into a world where every detail was designed to impress, and every shadow has a purpose. Inside, the hallway stretches out before you, long and narrow. The floor is covered in a thick, Persian rug, so dense that your footsteps make no sound at all. It is like walking on a cloud of wool and dust. The air in here is different, it is heavy, and it carries the smell of beeswax polish and dried lavender. You look up, and the ceilings are so high they seem to disappear into the darkness. Elaborate plaster moldings trace patterns of vines and flowers across the edges, patterns that no one ever really looks at, but they are there, silent and intricate. To your left, a grandfather clock stands against the wall. Its rhythmic ticking is slow, steady, and hypnotic. Tick, tock, tick, tock. It is the heartbeat of the house. It doesn't care about the rush of the modern world. It only knows the slow passage of seconds, minutes, and hours. Each swing of the brass pendulum catches a tiny glint of light, back and forth, lulling your mind into a state of perfect calm. You walk further into the mansion, passing heavy velvet curtains that drape from the windows. They are a deep, midnight blue, so heavy that they seem to hold the stillness of the room in place. They block out the world outside, creating a sanctuary of silence. The light inside is dim, provided by small, flickering lamps that cast soft, orange circles on the wood paneling. The shadows in the corners are soft and soft-edged, like velvet. There is nothing sharp here, nothing loud, nothing fast. As you enter the formal drawing room, you see the furniture, arranged in perfect, frozen symmetry. Armchairs covered in silk damask, small tables with marble tops, and cabinets filled with delicate porcelain that hasn't been touched in years. It is a room designed for sitting, for waiting, for simply being. You imagine the people who sat here, dressed in their heavy wools and silks, speaking in low whispers, or perhaps not speaking at all. Just listening to the fire crackling softly in the hearth. The fireplace is the center of the room. The flames are low now, mostly glowing orange embers, pulsing with a gentle heat. A single log shifts, sending a tiny cascade of sparks up the chimney. The warmth touches your face, just a soft, steady glow, while the rest of the room remains cool and shadowed. You feel the weight of the house around you, tons of stone and timber, holding you in a safe, silent embrace. It is a place where nothing ever changes, and nothing ever breaks the peace. You notice the wallpaper, an intricate pattern of deep green and gold. If you stare at it long enough, the patterns seem to move ever so slightly in the dim light. Your eyes follow the curves of the leaves, the delicate lines of the gold leaf, until they feel heavy. Your vision blurs just a little, and the room feels even softer than before. The grand illusion is working. It is making you forget the world outside, the noise, the lights, the hurry. Here, there is only the ticking clock and the dying fire. The staircase in the hall is a masterpiece of dark wood. The banister is smooth, worn down by the touch of 1,000 hands over many decades. As you look up the spiral, the stairs seem to lead into a dream. Each step is a mystery, each landing a place of quiet reflection. You don't feel the need to climb them. You only want to stand here, in the cool, quiet heart of the mansion, and breathe in the stillness. The air is cool in your lungs, clean, and very, very old. In this mansion, time is not a river that flows. It is a pool of deep, dark water, still and undisturbed. The grand illusion tells you that you are safe here, that the world can wait, that the night is long, and the silence is your friend. You feel the tension leaving your shoulders. You feel your breath slowing down, matching the rhythm of the grandfather clock. In and out, in and out. The house is breathing with you. Outside, the stars are beginning to appear in the vast, dark sky. But inside, the world is small, and warm, and quiet. The walls are thick enough to keep out every worry. The darkness is not scary, it is like a soft blanket being pulled over the world. You find a large, cushioned chair near the fire. You sit down, and the velvet is soft against your skin. You close your eyes, but you can still see the orange glow of the embers behind your eyelids. The ticking of the clock feels further away now. Tick, tock, tick, tock. It is becoming a whisper. The scent of the lavender and the wood smoke is fading into a single, peaceful aroma. The grand illusion has completed its task. It has taken you away from the present and placed you in a long, boring, beautiful history. A history where the only thing you have to do is rest. The fire is almost out now. Only a faint, red pulse remains. The room is almost entirely dark. The silence is absolute. You are drifting, floating, in the vast, quiet space of the mansion. There is no tomorrow, there is only this moment of perfect, heavy sleep. The mansion will be here when you wake, but for now, let the shadows hold you. Let the silence guide you. Sleep now. Just sleep. We continue our journey deeper into the heart of the mansion. Now that the grand door has closed behind you, and the world of the 19th century has wrapped its silent arms around your senses, we must look closer at the walls that surround us. These walls were not built for ease. They were not designed for the simple warmth of a family. No. They were built for something much heavier, something much more tiring. They were built for status. Pause for a moment and look at the marble floor beneath your feet. It is cold, so very cold. The white and gray veins in the stone look like frozen rivers, captured in a time when appearance was everything. In the winter, this floor would drain the heat from your body, even through thick wool socks. But to the Victorian master, that didn't matter. What mattered was the way the light from the chandelier hit the polished surface, telling every visitor that here lived a man of immense power. Status is a heavy burden to carry, and you can feel that weight in every room. Consider the chairs in the grand hallway. They are made of dark, solid mahogany, carved with the faces of lions and the curves of acanthus leaves. They look magnificent, but they were never meant to be comfortable. The backs are perfectly straight, forcing anyone who sits in them to remain rigid, upright, and formal. There is no place to lean back, no place to truly relax. Comfort was seen as a weakness, a lack of discipline. As you move slowly down the corridor, notice the height of the walls. They stretch up 12, 14, 16 feet. It is a vast space of empty air. In the summer, this air remains stagnant and heavy, and in the winter, all the warmth rises far above your head, leaving you in a layer of permanent chill near the floor. The Victorians built these soaring ceilings to make a human being feel small, to make the house feel like a cathedral, a temple dedicated to social standing. And you, standing here in the silence, feel that scale pressing down on you, making your eyes heavy, making your steps slow. Look at the windows. They are massive, draped in layers upon layers of heavy fabric. First, a layer of lace to filter the light. Then, a layer of thick silk. And finally, heavy velvet curtains, weighted at the bottom with gold fringe. They were meant to show off wealth, to show that the owner could afford yards and yards of the finest textiles. But these curtains also served a darker purpose. They trapped the dust, they muffled the world, and they made the rooms feel like beautiful, airless boxes. The air in this part of the house is incredibly still. It smells of old fabric, and the faint, metallic scent of cold brass. Every surface is covered in something. There is no empty space. Small tables hold heavy glass paperweights. Pedestals hold marble busts of ancestors long forgotten. Walls are crowded with paintings in massive gold frames, scenes of dark forests and silent battles. It is a museum of things, a collection of objects that demand to be looked at, but never touched. Think about the effort it took to keep this status alive. Every morning, before the sun had even touched the horizon, servants were moving through these rooms like ghosts. They were polishing that cold marble, dusting those heavy curtains, and scrubbing the soot from the ornate carvings. All of this work, just to maintain an image of perfection that was, in reality, very uncomfortable to live inside. Now, walk with me toward the formal dining room. The table is a long, dark lake of polished wood. It is so long that the people sitting at either end can barely hear each other's whispers. This was intentional. Intimacy was not the goal. Grandeur was the goal. Imagine sitting here for a 4-hour dinner, the air thick with the smell of heavy sauces and the flickering heat of 100 candles. You would be wearing a corset or a stiff high collar, unable to move freely, unable to breathe deeply. The status extended even to the light itself. In the corners of the room, the shadows are deep and permanent. The Victorians loved the drama of light and shadow. It made their homes feel mysterious and ancient. As you stare into one of those dark corners, your mind begins to wander. The patterns on the rug start to blur. The gold frames on the wall lose their shine. Everything is becoming a soft, gray haze. Even the noises of the house are muffled by its own grandness. A door closing in the distance sounds like a heartbeat, dull and far away. The wind outside may be howling, but inside these thick stone walls, it is only a faint, ghostly whistle. You are wrapped in a cocoon of expensive silence. It is a silence that tells you that you don't need to do anything. You don't need to speak. You don't need to move. You are just a guest in this monument to the past. The heat in this mansion is a ghost. You might feel a slight warmth near a radiator or a fireplace, but as soon as you move into the center of the room, the cold returns. It is a damp, heavy cold that seeps into the wood and the stone. It encourages you to stay still, to wrap your arms around yourself, and to close your eyes. The house is asking you to become part of its furniture, to be as still and silent as the marble statues in the hall. There is a clock in this room too. It is smaller than the one in the hall, but its tick is sharper. Click, click, click. It is counting the seconds of a life lived for show. Every second is a reminder that status is a performance. But performances are exhausting. And you are tired. You are so very tired of the grandeur. You want to let go of the rigid back of the chair. You want to forget the cold marble. You want to sink into the softness of the shadows. As you stand in the center of the dining hall, the scale of the room seems to grow even larger. The ceiling moves further away. The walls retreat into the gloom. You are a small point of warmth in a vast, cold, beautiful space. The grand illusion told you it was a dream, but the reality tells you it is a burden. And the only way to escape the burden is to sleep. The light is fading now. The sun has completely set, and the lamps are being turned down, one by one. The gold leaf on the picture frames loses its glow. The red in the velvet curtains turns to black. The house is settling into the night. The wood is groaning softly as it cools, a slow, rhythmic sound, like the breathing of an old giant. Focus on that sound. The house is breathing. In and out. The stone is cold, the wood is dark, and the status no longer matters. In the dark, a mansion is just a shelter. A big, quiet, boring shelter. Let the history of this place wash over you, like a slow-moving river of gray water. It is heavy, it is deep, and it is taking you down, into the quietest parts of your mind. There is no more need to impress anyone. There are no guests coming. There are no balls to attend. There is only the stillness. The long, uninterrupted stillness. Your eyes are closing now, and you can no longer see the carvings or the marble. You can only feel the weight of the air, and the slow, steady pull of sleep. The mansion will stand here for another 100 years, cold and grand. But you are leaving it now. You are drifting away from the status, away from the discomfort, and into the perfect, warm safety of a dreamless rest. The history is over for today. The story has reached its end. Everything is quiet. Everything is still. Sleep now. Sleep. As you continue your slow, silent walk through the mansion, we begin to notice the invisible lines drawn in the air. This house was not just a collection of rooms, it was a carefully designed machine of separation. A place where people lived together, yet remained completely apart. Imagine the silence in these long, shadowed hallways, a silence built into the very architecture of the stone and wood. This is the architecture of isolation, and as we explore it, you will feel the stillness growing even deeper, even heavier around you. Look at the walls that line the grand corridor. They are thick, solid, and cold. Behind these walls lie the servants' passages, a hidden world that mirrors the one you see, but in a much simpler, much quieter way. These passages were built so that the residents of the mansion would never have to see the work that made their lives possible. A door disguised as a wooden panel leads to a narrow, lightless staircase, where the air is cooler, and the scent of coal dust is stronger. Think of the life of those who moved through these hidden veins of the house. They walked on bare floorboards, making only the softest of sounds. Their world was one of shadows and gray stone, while only a few inches away, on the other side of the lath and plaster, was a world of silk and gold. This physical separation creates a sense of profound quiet. It is a house of two worlds, neither of which truly knows the other. And as you stand in the middle of this grand hall, you feel that distance. It is a peaceful distance, a gap that swallows sound and movement. The doors in this part of the mansion are heavy, made of solid oak that has aged for over a century. When they close, they do so with a dull, final thud, cutting off one room from the next. There is no flow here, no open spaces. Each room is its own island of silence. The library, the drawing room, the dining hall, they are all separate containers of time. To move from one to another is to cross a border, and each time you do, the air feels different, the light shifts, and your breath slows down even more. Look up at the ornate plasterwork where the walls meet the ceiling. Notice the tiny, repetitive details, the scrolls, the leaves, the geometric patterns that repeat over and over again. Follow one line with your eyes. Trace it slowly as it curves around the corner of the room, and then begins again. It is a boring, endless cycle of shapes. Your eyes might begin to feel tired as you follow these patterns, and that is exactly what they were meant to do. To provide a sense of order, a sense of unchanging, unmoving history. Isolation was also built into the way the rooms were used. A gentleman might spend his entire evening in the library, surrounded by the smell of old leather bindings and cold tobacco smoke. A lady might remain in the morning room, where the light is soft and the wallpaper is pale. They lived in the same house, under the same roof, but they occupied different atmospheres. This specialization of space creates a calm, predictable rhythm. There is no surprise here. Everything happens exactly where it is supposed to happen, at exactly the time it is supposed to occur. The windows here are tall and narrow, looking out over the misty gardens. Because the glass is old, it has small ripples and bubbles within it. When you look through it, the world outside seems to blur, as if it is underwater. The trees move slowly in the wind, but they look like shadows. The garden path seems to dissolve into the fog. This house doesn't want you to look outside. It wants you to stay here, in the dim, quiet interior. It wants you to forget that there is a world beyond these walls. Think about the thickness of the rugs once more. They are not just for warmth, they are for soundproofing. In a mansion like this, even the sound of a falling book would be swallowed by the heavy textiles. The silence is layered. It is in the curtains, it is in the carpets, it is in the very air that sits motionless in the corners. You are walking through a sea of quiet. Each step you take feels lighter, as if the house is taking the weight from your feet. The servant's bell system sits high on the wall in the kitchen, but here, in the living quarters, the poles are made of silk tassels. They hang beside the fireplaces, silent and still. They are the only connection between the two worlds. But even they are silent now. No one is pulling the cord. No one is waiting. The bells in the basement are unmoving, hanging in their rows like frozen metal flowers. The isolation is complete. As you move toward the grand staircase, notice how the light becomes even dimmer. The sun has long since disappeared, and the house is relying on the last few glowing embers in the hearths. The shadows are long, stretching across the floors like dark velvet ribbons. They seem to invite you to follow them into the deeper, darker parts of the mansion, where the silence is even more absolute. Every room you pass is a testament to a life lived in sections. The music room, with its silent piano covered in a silk cloth. The smoking room, with its heavy, dark chairs that smell of cedarwood. Each room is a different flavor of boredom. A different kind of stillness. You feel yourself drifting between these islands of history, your mind losing its grip on the present. The year 1890 doesn't feel like the past, it feels like the only time that exists. The architecture of isolation is not a cold thing, it is a protective thing. It wraps you in a cocoon of stone and wood. It keeps the noise of the world far away. It allows your thoughts to slow down, to become as still as the statues in the hallway. You don't need to think about what is behind the next door. You know it will be more of the same, more quiet, more shadows, more peace. Your breath is very steady now. It matches the slow, heavy pulse of the house. You are no longer a visitor, you are part of the architecture. You are as still as the oak panels, as quiet as the velvet drapes. The isolation is no longer a gap between people, it is a bridge to a deep, restorative rest. The hallway is stretching out, longer and softer in your mind. The details of the carvings are blurring into a single, dark texture. The scent of the old house is like a warm blanket, heavy and familiar. You are ready to stop walking. You are ready to let the isolation become your sanctuary. Let the house hold you. Let the thick walls protect your sleep. The world outside is gone. There is only this room, this shadow, and this perfect, boring, beautiful silence. The story of the mansion is fading, leaving only the feeling of the cool, still air. You are drifting, falling, into the quietest part of the night. Sleep now. In the heart of the mansion. Sleep. Now, we begin a journey away from the flickering hearth, and into the long, shadowed veins of the mansion. As you step out of the warm drawing room, the temperature drops immediately. It is a physical sensation, a thin veil of frost that seems to hang in the air of the corridor. This is the walk through the cold, a journey every resident of this house took a dozen times a day. Feel the stillness of the air here, it is unmoving, heavy, and ancient. Your feet leave the thick rugs of the living quarters, and meet the bare floorboards of the gallery. The wood is dark, polished to a dull shine that looks like frozen water. Each step you take sends a soft, muffled vibration through the floor, but the sound is swallowed by the vast, empty space above you. There is no heating here. No fireplaces to break the chill. The stone walls absorb the cold of the winter night and hold it deep within their bones. As you walk, your breath begins to form a faint, white mist in front of you, rising and disappearing into the shadows of the high ceiling. The hallway stretches out, seemingly infinite. It is a landscape of gray and brown, lit only by the pale, silver moonlight filtering through the high, arched windows. This light does not warm. It only highlights the dust motes dancing slowly, very slowly, in the frozen air. Watch them drift. They have no hurry. They rise and fall in a rhythmic, boring dance, caught in a pocket of time that hasn't changed in a century. Your eyes begin to follow a single speck of dust, moving down, then up, then down again, until your gaze becomes heavy, and your focus softens. To your left, the windows are cold to the touch. If you were to press your palm against the glass, it would feel like pressing against a sheet of ice. Outside, the world is white and silent, but inside, the silence is even deeper. It is a silence that has a weight. It presses against your ears, a soft, continuous hum of nothingness. The cold is not sharp here, it is dull. It is a slow cold that encourages you to pull your robe tighter, to tuck your chin down, and to slow your pace until you are barely moving at all. You pass a row of tall, narrow doors. They are all closed, their brass handles tarnished and dark. What lies behind them? More empty rooms. More cold furniture covered in white sheets. More shadows. You don't need to open them. The mystery is not exciting, it is simply part of the stillness. The house is a maze of these quiet cells, each one holding a piece of the winter air. As you walk past them, you feel the repetitive nature of the architecture. Door, wall, window, door. It is a rhythmic pattern that lulls your mind into a state of total boredom. Look at the floorboards again. Notice the grain of the wood. The long, winding lines of the oak, repeating over and over under your feet. You walk along these lines, following them into the gloom. The corridor begins to turn, a slow, sweeping curve that leads you deeper into the heart of the mansion. Here, the moonlight cannot reach. The darkness is soft, like charcoal. You are walking by feel now, the cool air guiding you like a gentle hand on your shoulder. There is a scent here, the scent of the cold. It is the smell of damp stone, old wax, and the faint, metallic tang of iron railings. It is a clean smell, devoid of life, devoid of heat. It clears your head, washing away the clutter of the day. Every inhale is a cool stream of peace, every exhale is a release of tension. You are becoming as cool and as still as the house itself. Your heart rate is slowing, matching the slow, rhythmic creak of the house as it settles into the night. Creak, then silence. Creak, then silence. In the Victorian era, this walk was a test of endurance, but for you, it is a test of surrender. You are surrendering to the boredom of the hallway. You are surrendering to the repetitive nature of the shadows. There is nothing to see, nothing to hear, nothing to do but move forward, slowly, through the chill. The mansion is so large that your destination feels miles away, and you are happy for it to stay that way. You want to stay in this transition, in this quiet, cold middle ground, forever. You reach a small landing where a statue of a veiled woman stands in a niche. She is made of white marble, her features soft and blurred by the dim light. She has stood in this cold spot for 80 years, unmoving, untroubled. You stop for a moment, leaning against the stone plinth. The coldness of the stone seeps through your sleeve, a grounding, steadying sensation. You look at the statue, and you realize that she is the perfect inhabitant of this house. She does not need warmth. She only needs the silence. As you continue, the air seems to grow even heavier. You are approaching the servants' wing, where the ceilings are lower and the hallways are narrower. Here, the cold is even more intense, trapped in the tight spaces of the stone. The walls are plain here, no carvings, no paintings. Just the honest, boring reality of brick and mortar. The simplicity of this space is comforting. There is no status to maintain here, only the quiet reality of the night. Your footsteps are now just a whisper. The world of the grand drawing rooms feels like a dream you had a long time ago. The heat of the fire is a distant memory. You are now a creature of the shadows, a traveler in a kingdom of frost. You feel a profound sense of isolation, but it is not lonely. It is a private, sacred peace. No one can find you here. No one can ask anything of you. You are lost in the vastness of a boring, beautiful history. The hallway opens up into a larger vestibule. The air here is the coldest yet, a deep, biting chill that comes from the grand stone staircase. But you don't mind. Your body feels light, almost numb, and your mind is drifting far away from the physical world. You are floating through the mansion now, a ghost among ghosts. The history of the house is pressing in on you, the stories of 1,000 silent nights, all of them just as cold as this one. You find a wooden bench against the wall. It is hard and cold. You sit down for just a moment, resting your head against the dark wood. The coldness acts like a balm, numbing any remaining thoughts. Your mind is a blank slate, a white field of snow. The walk through the cold has done its work. It has stripped away the noise. It has slowed your pulse. It has prepared you for the deepest of sleeps. The mansion is breathing with you. A long, slow, cold breath. In and out. The shadows are closing in, wrapping around you like a heavy wool blanket. You feel a sense of completion. The walk is over. The cold is your companion. You close your eyes, and even behind your lids, you see the long, dark, silent corridor. It is a path to nowhere, and that is exactly where you want to be. You are drifting, sliding, into a sleep that is as deep and as cold as the stone foundations of the house. Sleep now. In the long hallway. Sleep. Let the cold keep you still. Let the silence keep you safe. We stand now in the center of the grand parlor, and as we look around, we begin to understand the great, silent struggle of this house. It is the struggle for warmth. In the 1880s, heating a mansion was not a matter of turning a dial. It was an endless, repetitive, and almost impossible task. As you listen to the history of this cold air, feel yourself sinking deeper into your seat, letting the weight of the house settle over you like a heavy, velvet cloak. Look up at the ceilings once more. They are so far away. In these grand rooms, heat was a ghost that refused to stay. Because warm air rises, every bit of warmth created by the coal fires would immediately float upward, far above the heads of the people, leaving them in a layer of permanent chill near the floor. Imagine the physics of it. A slow, invisible migration of molecules, rising higher and higher, until they are trapped against the ornate plaster moldings, useless and out of reach. It is a boring, natural law, and as you think about that rising air, your own thoughts feel lighter, drifting up and away, leaving your body heavy and still. Now, look at the fireplace. It is a massive structure of marble and cast iron. It looks powerful, but it is a beautiful failure. A Victorian open fire is a hungry thing. It consumes coal by the bucketful, yet nearly 80% of the heat it produces goes straight up the chimney. You can hear the faint, distant whistle of the wind pulling the heat away. Whoosh, whoosh. It is a constant cycle of waste. The heat is born in the flames, it dances for a moment, and then it is gone, pulled into the dark throat of the flue. This cycle is hypnotic. Fire, air, disappearance. Fire, air, disappearance. To keep this room even slightly warm, a servant must visit it every few hours. Imagine the repetition of their movements. They arrive with a heavy brass scuttle, filled with black, shining coal. They kneel on the cold hearth. They use a small shovel to move the coal, clink, scrape, clink. The sound is rhythmic and metallic. They stir the embers with a long iron poker. They sweep the stray ash back into the grate. This same action is happening in 20 different rooms, at the same time every single day. It is a choreography of boredom, a never-ending loop of coal and ash. The warmth of a Victorian mansion was never a steady thing. It was a microclimate. If you stand directly in front of the fire, your face feels the glow, almost too hot, almost stinging. But if you take just 3 steps back, the heat vanishes. You are back in the shadows, back in the damp cold of the stone. This constant movement between heat and cold is exhausting for the body. Eventually, you stop trying to stay warm. You accept the chill. You let your body adapt to the slow, steady temperature of the room. You stop fighting the air, and you simply exist within it. Consider the windows again. They are the enemies of warmth. The glass is thin, and the frames are made of wood that expands and contracts with the seasons. There is always a draft. A thin, invisible stream of freezing air that snakes through the cracks. It moves the heavy silk curtains just a fraction of an inch. You can see them sway, very slowly, back and forth. It is the house breathing in the winter night. This draft travels across the floor, invisible and silent, like a stream of cold water. It curls around your ankles, reminding you that the world outside is always trying to get in. But the mansion has a defense. It is the defense of layers. To combat the impossible task of heating, everything is covered. The walls are covered in thick paper and fabric. The floors are covered in wool and padding. The people are covered in flannel and fur. Everything is muffled. Everything is padded. This creates a sensory vacuum, a world where sound is soft and movement is slow. As you think about these layers, feel them wrapping around you. 1 layer of wool, 1 layer of silk, 1 layer of silence. You are being tucked in by the history of the house. In the basement, the great coal furnace sits like a sleeping beast. It is a massive iron drum, connected to a forest of pipes. These pipes carry hot water or steam to the radiators in the halls. You can hear them sometimes, a faint, distant tink, tink, clink. It is the sound of metal expanding in the dark. It is a slow, metallic heartbeat. It tells you that the house is trying, but it will never truly be warm. And in that failure, there is peace. Because if the house were perfectly warm, it would be too bright, too active. But the cold keeps it quiet. The cold keeps it still. Imagine the smoke rising from the dozens of chimneys on the roof. Dozens of gray plumes, drifting into the dark sky. It is a forest of smoke, rising into the clouds. This is the result of all that work, all that coal. A mountain of fuel burned just to keep the shadows from freezing. It is an incredible amount of effort for such a small result. It is the very definition of a boring task. And as you follow the smoke up into the night sky, your mind goes with it. Up, into the dark, into the quiet, into the nothingness. The air in the parlor is now thick with the scent of coal gas and beeswax. It is a heavy smell, a smell that makes your eyelids feel like lead. You are sitting in a chair that has been in this spot for 100 years. It doesn't move. The fire doesn't really warm you. The drafts don't really bother you. You are simply a part of the room's climate. You are as still as the air trapped in the high corners of the ceiling. There is a sense of futility in the Victorian mansion, a sense that the house is too big for human comfort. But in that futility, there is a release. You don't have to try anymore. You don't have to stay warm. You can just let the cool air settle over your skin. You can let your breath slow down until it is almost imperceptible. The task of heating is impossible, so we stop trying. We surrender to the cold. We surrender to the night. The fire in the grate is burning low now. The bright orange flames have turned into a deep, pulsing red. The coal is turning to ash, white and light. Soon, the servant will not come back. The scuttle will remain empty. The fire will go out, and the room will return to its natural state, cold, dark, and silent. You are waiting for that moment. You are waiting for the last glow to disappear. You are watching the embers, watching them fade, watching them die. With every pulse of the fire, you feel yourself drifting further away. The history of the house is a long, gray corridor, and you are at the end of it. The task is finished. The heat is gone. Only the stillness remains. The house is finally at rest. The air is perfectly, beautifully, boringly still. You are sinking, falling, into the deep, cool, dark foundations of sleep. The impossible task is over. You can rest now. Sleep. In the cool dark. Sleep. Let us move closer now, not to a room, but to a single point within a room. Imagine you are drawing your chair toward the fireplace in the master library. In a Victorian mansion, the room itself was never the destination, the hearth was. Because the house was so vast and the ceiling so high, heat existed only in small, fragile bubbles. This was the microclimate of the hearth, a tiny sanctuary of orange light, surrounded on all sides by an ocean of dark, unmoving cold. As you settle into this imaginary circle of warmth, feel your body becoming heavy, anchored to this one spot, while the rest of the world fades into the shadows. Look at the fire. It is not a roaring blaze, but a steady, rhythmic pulse of coal. The coals are stacked in a precise, boring pyramid within the black iron grate. Watch the glow. It moves from a bright, sharp orange to a deep, smoldering crimson. It pulses like a slow heartbeat. In and out. Bright and dim. As you stare into the center of the glow, your vision begins to blur. The flickering becomes a soft haze. There is nothing else to look at. No movement in the room, no sound in the street outside. Only the slow, steady transformation of coal into ash. Within this microclimate, the air is different. It is dry, and it carries the faint, dusty smell of baked stone and ancient soot. It feels thick against your skin. But notice the boundary. If you were to stretch out your arm, just a few feet away from the fire, you would feel the cliff edge of the heat. Your fingertips would meet the wall of the house's natural chill. It is a strange, repetitive sensation. Warmth on your face, cold on your back. This contrast creates a physical lullaby, a constant reminder of how precious this small circle of light truly is. You find yourself leaning closer, pulling your senses inward, focusing only on the few square feet of warmth that belong to you. The sounds of the hearth are the only music in this silent mansion. There is the occasional, soft pop of a gas pocket in the coal. There is the faint, rhythmic hiss of the rising heat. And then, the most boring sound of all, the sound of ash falling. Every so often, a tiny flake of burnt coal loses its grip and falls through the grate into the tray below. Ting! A sound so small it barely exists. It is the sound of time passing in the 19th century, one grain of ash at a time. You find yourself waiting for the next flake to fall. Your mind is empty, waiting, listening, until the wait itself becomes a form of sleep. Think of the objects that live within this microclimate with you. There is a brass fender at your feet, polished so brightly that it reflects the fire in long, distorted lines of gold. The light on the brass doesn't move quickly. It flows like liquid. To your side, a heavy velvet fire screen stands on a mahogany pole. Its job is to protect your face from the direct sting of the heat, to soften the glow. The screen is embroidered with a pattern of silent, frozen birds and flowers. You trace the silk threads with your eyes, following the needlework, round and round, until the patterns lose their meaning and become just a soft, colorful mist. Outside this tiny circle, the mansion is a wilderness. The corners of the library are lost in a deep, blue-black shadow. The books on the high shelves are cold to the touch, their leather covers stiff with the winter air. The grand piano in the corner is a silent, dark island. But here, by the fire, you are safe. The microclimate is a cocoon. It is a small, manageable world where nothing ever changes. No one enters, no one leaves. The air only moves in a slow, circular path, from the floor, into the fire, and up the chimney. A closed loop of existence. As the minutes pass, the warmth begins to seep through your clothing. It travels through the layers of wool and flannel, reaching your skin with a gentle, heavy touch. It feels like a physical weight, pressing you down into the cushions of your chair. Your muscles, which have been tight from the cold of the hallways, now begin to uncoil. One by one, the fibers of your body relax. Your shoulders drop. Your hands rest motionless on your lap. Your jaw relaxes. You are becoming as still as the furniture around you. In this microclimate, time is measured by the scuttle. Every hour, the servant might return to add a single lump of coal. They do it with practiced, boring efficiency. They don't speak. They move like a shadow at the edge of your warmth. The clink of the tongs is the only signal. Then, they are gone, back into the cold, leaving you alone once more with the pulse of the fire. This ritual is so predictable, so certain, that it gives your mind permission to stop guarding the room. You are protected by the routine. The shadows on the wall behind you are large and soft. They move only when the fire shifts. They are like giant, slow-moving clouds on a dark ceiling. They rise and fall, stretching and shrinking, in a silent dance that has no end. You don't need to look at them to know they are there. They are the guardians of your sleep. They wrap around the edges of the room, keeping the vastness of the mansion away from your small circle of peace. The fire is reaching its most stable point now. The flames have died down, leaving only the glowing heart of the coal. This is the deep heat. It is a steady, unwavering radiation. It doesn't flicker anymore. It just glows. It is a deep, solid red, like the sun setting through a thick fog. This light is the last thing you see before your eyes finally stay closed. It is a warm, heavy color that lives behind your eyelids. You feel the contrast of the house one last time. The vast, cold, empty rooms stretching out for hundreds of feet in every direction. The drafty corridors, the frozen windows, the silent stone basements. But they don't matter. You are in the microclimate. You are in the heart of the warmth. You are tucked into the tiny, glowing center of the 19th century. The air is very, very still. The hiss of the fire has become a whisper. The ticking of the clock in the distance has become a memory. You are drifting away from the heat and into the softness of the dark. The microclimate is shrinking, getting smaller and smaller, until it is just a tiny spark in the center of your mind. And then, that spark too begins to fade. Everything is quiet. Everything is warm. Everything is perfectly, beautifully boring. You are safe. You are still. You are resting. Sleep now. By the hearth. Sleep. Let the fire go out. The morning is a long way off. Just sleep. As we sit in the stillness of the mansion, we must look closer at the air itself. In the Victorian era, the air was never truly empty. It was filled with a silent, invisible passenger. Soot. This is the story of the constant, losing battle against the fine, black dust of the coal age. A history of cleaning that never ended, a cycle of repetition that is as heavy and as gray as the soot itself. As we describe the slow settling of these tiny particles, let your mind settle too, sinking down, layer by layer, into a deep and quiet rest. Imagine a single grain of coal soot. It is smaller than a grain of sand, lighter than a feather. It is born in the fires we have just discussed, rising up from the hearth, escaping the chimney, and drifting back down through the cracks in the windows. It floats through the grand rooms like a microscopic ghost. It doesn't fall quickly. It drifts. It lingers in the air, moving with the slow currents of the drafty halls. Watch it in your mind, rising and falling, orbiting the silent furniture, until it finally finds a place to rest. Soot is not like ordinary dust. It is greasy. It is heavy with the oils of ancient carbon. When it lands on a surface, it doesn't just sit there, it clings. Imagine the miles of fabric in this house. The heavy velvet curtains, the silk wall coverings, the thick wool carpets. Every fiber acts like a filter, catching the soot as it drifts by. Over days, weeks, and months, the vibrant colors of the mansion begin to fade. The bright reds turn to brick, the deep blues turn to slate, the whites turn to a soft, permanent gray. It is a slow, inevitable transformation. A world losing its color, one tiny particle at a time. Think of the servant whose entire life is dedicated to this battle. Every morning, before the sun has fully cleared the horizon, she begins the ritual of the dusting. She uses a soft cloth, moving it in slow, circular motions over the mahogany tables. Swish, swish, swish. The cloth catches the soot, turning from white to gray in a single pass. But as soon as she moves to the next room, the soot begins to fall again. It is a task without an end. A boring, circular labor that mimics the ticking of the clock. Cleaning, settling, cleaning, settling. The repetition is hypnotic. It is the rhythm of the house. Look at the ornate carvings on the legs of the chairs. The tiny wooden vines, the small plaster grapes on the ceiling, the deep grooves in the picture frames. These are the hiding places of the soot. It tucks itself into the corners where a cloth cannot reach. It builds up in layers, softening the sharp edges of the wood, making the house feel older, heavier, and more tired. To clean these spots, the servant must use a tiny brush, moving it back and forth, into every microscopic crevice. Imagine the focus required for such a dull task. The mind goes blank. The world shrinks down to the tip of a brush, and the endless, gray dust. The soot also finds its way into the lungs of the house. It settles inside the grand piano, coating the copper strings and the felt hammers in a fine, black velvet. It settles inside the books in the library, resting on the tops of the pages, creating a dark line that tells the story of every year the book has sat unread. When you open a book, a faint, earthy smell rises, the smell of trapped smoke and time. It is a dry, peaceful scent. A scent that reminds you that everything eventually returns to the earth. Everything eventually becomes still. Consider the gas lamps. As they burn, they release a thin, steady stream of carbon. You can see it on the ceiling above the glass globes. A dark, soft circle begins to form. It grows so slowly that you cannot see it happen. But every night, it becomes a fraction darker. The ceiling is a canvas, and the soot is the paint. It is a masterpiece of boredom. A slow, spreading shadow that matches the slow, spreading fatigue in your own body. Your thoughts are like that soot, drifting, settling, and becoming part of the background. In the winter, the battle intensifies. More fires mean more soot. The air becomes thicker, heavier. The curtains feel weighted down by it. The very air feels old. But there is a strange comfort in this heaviness. It muffles the world. It acts like an extra layer of insulation, a blanket of microscopic dust that keeps the silence in. You are breathing in the history of the coal fire, a slow, steady breath that calms your heart. In and out. In and out. Think of the great spring cleaning. A time when every carpet was taken outside and beaten with heavy sticks. Thud, thud, thud. Imagine the clouds of soot rising into the bright spring air, a gray ghost escaping the wool. But for now, it is winter. And in the winter, the soot stays. It settles on the mirrors, dulling your reflection. It settles on the silver, taking away the shine. It settles on the soul of the house, encouraging it to stay quiet, to stay dark, to stay asleep. The battle with soot is a reminder that perfection is impossible. No matter how hard the servant works, the soot will return. It is a law of nature. And there is a great peace in accepting that. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be clean. You can just be. You can let the dust settle. You can let the world grow dim and gray around you. The grayness is not dirty, it is soft. It is a shadow you can live in. The fires in the mansion are glowing low now, producing less smoke, less soot. The air is becoming even stiller. The particles that were dancing in the lamplight are finally finding their resting places. They are landing on the mantelpiece, on the tops of the picture frames, on the folds of the heavy blankets. They are coming to rest. And you are coming to rest with them. Feel the weight of the soot in the air, a gentle, invisible pressure that encourages your eyes to close. The world is covered in a fine, soft, gray veil. Everything is muted. Everything is quiet. The battle is over for today. The soot has won, and in its victory, it has brought a perfect, boring, beautiful peace. Your mind is now as still as the dust on the highest shelf. No one will disturb you. No one will move you. You are part of the quiet layers of the house. A layer of history. A layer of sleep. Let the black dust settle. Let the fire fade. The gray night is here to hold you. Sleep now. Under the veil of the soot. Sleep. Deeply. Sleep. As you rest in the deepening shadows of the parlor, you might feel as though you are entirely alone in this vast stone monument. But you are not. Moving through the walls, beneath the floorboards, and behind the heavy oak doors is a silent, disciplined, and invisible army. These are the servants of the mansion. Dozens of men and women whose lives are governed by a clock that never stops, and a routine that never changes. Their existence is a cycle of repetitive labor, a rhythm of service that is as steady and as boring as the falling snow. As we observe their silent work, feel the structure of their day supporting you, allowing you to let go of your own schedule, and sink into the timeless peace of the house. Imagine the early morning hours, long before the sun has dared to touch the frost on the windows. In the cold, gray light of the basement, the invisible army begins to stir. There is no shouting, no loud commands. Only the soft, rhythmic sound of footsteps on stone. The scullery maid is the first to move. She walks to the great iron range, her movements practiced and slow. Scrape, clink, scrape. She clears the ashes from the night before, her hands moving in the same pattern she has followed for 1,000 mornings. This is the beginning of the machine. A machine made of people, designed to keep the mansion alive while never being noticed. The invisibility is intentional. In a Victorian mansion, a perfect servant is one who is never seen and never heard. They are the ghosts of the household. If they must cross a grand hallway, they do so with a silent, gliding step, keeping close to the walls, becoming part of the shadows. If you were to pass one in the corridor, they would turn their face away, becoming as still and as silent as a piece of furniture. This constant suppression of self, this dedication to silence, creates a profound atmosphere of stillness. You can feel that silence now, a borrowed piece from the people who lived their lives in the background. Think of the repetition in the kitchen. A maid is polishing the silver. She has a tray of 100 spoons, all laid out in perfect, boring rows. She takes a soft cloth and a dab of polish. Circle, rub, buff. Circle, rub, buff. Each spoon takes exactly 2 minutes. She does not think about the weather, or the news, or the future. She only thinks about the curve of the silver, and the rhythm of her hand. One spoon follows another, an endless line of shining metal. As you imagine her hand moving, feel your own thoughts following that same, slow, circular path. Round and round, until the world outside the room ceases to exist. In the laundry room, deep in the damp heart of the basement, the air is thick with the smell of lye and steam. The rhythmic slosh, slosh, slosh of the washing tubs is the only sound. Sheets are moved from water to wringer, then to the line, in a sequence that never varies by a single second. It is a world of white fabric and rising mist. The repetition of the movement is like the swinging of a pendulum. Back and forth. Back and forth. It is a labor that drains the mind, leaving only a quiet, empty space. Your mind is like those white sheets, being washed clean of the day, hanging still and heavy in the warm, damp air. The hierarchy of this army is as rigid as the stone foundations. the butler, the housekeeper, the valet, the cook. Each has a rank, and each rank has a specific, boring set of duties. The butler oversees the wine cellar, counting bottles in the dim, cool light. 1, 2, 3, 100, 1,000. The housekeeper checks the linens, feeling the texture of the fabric, ensuring every fold is perfectly aligned. This order is the mansion's defense against chaos. Everything has a place, and everything is in its place. There are no surprises here. No sudden changes. Just the comfort of total, absolute predictability. Think of the bell board in the servants' hall. A long row of black iron springs and small, brass bells. Each bell corresponds to a room. When a cord is pulled upstairs, a bell trembles down here. Ring, ring, ring. But it is not a loud sound. It is a thin, distant tinkle. A servant looks at the board, identifies the room, and begins the long, slow climb up the back stairs. They have climbed these stairs 10,000 times. Their feet know every knot in the wood, every shadow in the masonry. It is a journey of muscle memory, a walk taken in a dream. The invisible army is what makes the grand illusion possible. They are the hands that light the fires, the eyes that watch the clocks, the hearts that beat in the service of a house that does not know their names. But there is no resentment in this history, only the steady, boring flow of time. They find their own peace in the routine. In the sharpening of a knife, in the pouring of tea, in the folding of a newspaper. These small, repetitive acts are the anchors of their reality. And they can be your anchors too. The sun is setting now, and the army is preparing the house for the night. They move through the rooms, drawing the heavy velvet curtains. Swoosh, thud. Closing out the world. They turn down the lamps, lowering the wicks until the flame is just a tiny, golden bead. They move the fire screens into place, softening the glow of the dying embers. Their work is almost done. The machine is slowing down. The invisible army is retreating to their own small, quiet rooms in the attic. Imagine the servants' attic. The ceilings are low, and the air is still. There are no carvings here, no silk, no gold. Just a simple wooden bed and a single, flickering candle. They lie down in the dark, their bodies heavy with the honest exhaustion of a day well served. Their minds are quiet, already drifting into the same sleep they have provided for the house. You are resting with them now. The mansion is finally still. No bells are ringing. No footsteps are echoing in the halls. The invisible army is asleep, and the house is being held in the palm of their silence. You feel the weight of their collective rest, a massive, peaceful energy that covers the mansion from the roof to the cellar. The shadows are long, and the air is cool. Every chore is finished. Every spoon is polished. Every fire is tended. There is nothing left to do. The history of the day has been written in the dust they swept and the coal they burned. Let your breath match the heartbeat of the sleeping house. Slow, steady, and deep. You are part of the invisible army now, not in labor, but in rest. You have earned this silence. You have earned this boredom. The night is vast, and the mansion is a safe, dark harbor. Drifting, sinking, into the quiet heart of the 19th century. Sleep now. With the ghosts of the house. Sleep. The routine is over. The silence is yours. Sleep. As the mansion settles into the deep hours of the evening, we turn our attention to the nervous system of the house. It is a system made of copper wire, iron springs, and brass bells. This is the Victorian bell system, the invisible master that governed every movement of the army we just described. In the silence of the night, the bell system remains still, but its presence is felt in every room. It is a story of mechanical repetition, of pulling, stretching, and ringing. As we trace the path of these wires through the dark hollows of the walls, let your mind follow the same path, winding deeper and deeper into the quietest corners of your consciousness. Imagine you are standing in the servants' hall, deep in the basement. On the wall, high above the stone floor, hangs a long wooden board. Mounted upon it are 20, 30, maybe 40 brass bells. Each one is attached to a coiled iron spring. They are all silent now. They hang like frozen flowers, their polished surfaces catching a tiny glint of light from a distant candle. Beneath each bell is a small, hand-painted name. Library, master bedroom, drawing room, dining hall. These are the voices of the house, and when they speak, the silence is broken by a very specific, very boring, rhythmic vibration. Think of the wire that leads from the master's hand to the basement. It begins as a silk tassel hanging beside a fireplace, high up on the second floor. When that tassel is pulled, it moves a lever hidden behind the wallpaper. The lever pulls a copper wire, a wire that travels through the secret spaces between the rooms. It goes down through the floors, around corners, over pulleys, and through small holes in the masonry. It is a long, dark, silent journey. Imagine that wire moving, just an inch, sliding through the dust of 100 years. It makes no sound as it travels, a secret message moving through the bones of the mansion. Then, the wire reaches the basement. It pulls the iron spring. The spring begins to bounce. Boing, boing, boing. And then, the bell rings. But it is not a loud, alarming sound. In the vastness of the mansion, it is a thin, metallic tinkle. A lonely sound that echoes off the stone walls. It vibrates for a few seconds, the brass shivering in the cool air, and then it slowly, slowly comes to a stop. The silence that follows is even deeper than the silence before. It is a predictable cycle. The pull, the movement, the ring, the silence. A mechanical heartbeat that repeats forever. The servant watching the board does not rush. There is no panic in this house. Everything moves at the pace of the 1890s. They look at the board, they see which bell is still shivering, and they begin their walk. The walk we know so well. Through the corridors, up the back stairs, into the world of light. The bell system is a master that requires no words. It only requires the response of a body moving through space. It is a relationship of motion and sound, a boring, endless dialogue between the upstairs and the downstairs. Consider the pulleys. Small wheels made of wood or brass, tucked away in the corners of the ceilings. Every time a bell is pulled, these wheels turn just a fraction of a turn. Squeak, turn, stop. Over the decades, the wires have worn tiny grooves into the wood. Thousands of pulls. Thousands of rings. Thousands of cups of tea, fires lit, and doors opened. The history of the mansion is written in these tiny, worn grooves. It is a history of mundane needs, met with mundane actions. As you think about the turning of the pulley, feel your own thoughts turning, slowly, lazily, until they lose their momentum and come to a rest. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, a wire might contract from the cold. A bell might give a tiny, ghostly shiver even if no one has pulled the cord. It is just the house talking to itself in its sleep. A faint, silver sound in the darkness. You hear it, and it doesn't bother you. It is just part of the atmosphere, like the creak of the floorboards or the sigh of the wind in the chimney. The bells are the house's way of breathing, a mechanical inhale, a metallic exhale. In and out. Ring and silence. Think of the person who installed this system. A workman in a heavy wool coat, spending days threading copper wires through the dark voids of the walls. He would have pulled each wire, tested each bell, over and over again. Ring, stop. Ring, stop. A tedious, repetitive task that created the mansion's very soul. His work is still here, hidden behind the silk wallpaper and the oak panels, a hidden map of connection. You are following that map now, drifting through the walls, moving with the wire, feeling the tension leave your body as the wire goes slack. The bell board is the command center of the invisible army. But now, in the late hours, the board is quiet. The springs have stopped bouncing. The brass is still. The tassels upstairs hang motionless against the velvet. The system is at rest. The copper wires are cold and unmoving in the dark. The master is asleep, and therefore the servant is asleep, and therefore the bells are asleep. There is a profound peace in a silent bell. It means that nothing is needed. No one is calling. No one is waiting. Everything that could be done has been done. The fires are banked. The doors are locked. The water is carried. The house is a closed circuit of silence. You can feel that circuit now, a loop of quiet that circles the mansion, from the highest attic to the lowest cellar. You are inside that loop. You are part of the system, not as a wire that pulls, but as the silence that follows the ring. The shadows in the servants' hall are long and heavy. The bells on the wall look like small, dark moons in the dim light. Your eyes are drawn to them, watching for a movement that will never come. The stillness is absolute. It is a heavy, thick, boring stillness. The kind of stillness that makes your breath slow down until it is just a faint, rhythmic whisper. As you drift, the image of the bell board begins to fade. The copper wires dissolve into the darkness. The brass bells melt into the shadows. There is no upstairs. There is no downstairs. There is only the here and the now. And the now is very, very quiet. The mansion has stopped asking for anything. The master has forgotten the tassel. The house is content to be still. You are content to be still. The mechanical heart has stopped its ticking, and the silence is your blanket. Let yourself be pulled, not by a wire, but by the gravity of sleep. It is a slow, gentle pull, dragging you down into the soft, dark velvet of the night. You are sinking, descending, through the floors of history, into the deep, quiet earth. The bell will not ring again tonight. The master is silent. The system is off. Sleep now. In the silent hall. Sleep. Deeply. Sleep. We move now into the deepest heart of the mansion, a place where the sun has no memory, and the modern world of bright, artificial light has not yet been born. This is a life in the shadows. In the era before electricity, the Victorian mansion was not a place of brightness, it was a cathedral of gloom. It was a world where light was a precious, flickering guest, and shadows were the permanent residents. As we descend into this dim, amber-hued history, feel the darkness around you becoming soft, like a thick, velvet curtain, drawing itself closed over your tired mind. Imagine standing in the center of the grand library at midnight. There are no switches to flip, no instant glow to chase away the night. The only light comes from a single, lonely candle sitting on a mahogany desk. Watch that flame. It is a tiny, golden spear, fighting against a vast ocean of blackness. It doesn't illuminate the room, it only reveals how large the room truly is. The light travels only a few feet before it is swallowed by the dark wood of the bookshelves, the heavy drapes, and the deep, light-absorbing textures of the carpets. This is the true Victorian atmosphere, a slow, steady, and boring darkness. The shadows in this house are not empty. They are heavy. They are filled with the scent of beeswax, tallow, and the faint, sweet smell of whale oil. These were the fuels of the night. Think of the candle itself, a pillar of white wax slowly, very slowly, sacrificing itself to the flame. A single bead of melted wax forms at the base of the wick. It grows, it trembles, and then it slides down the side, cooling and hardening as it goes. This is the clock of the shadows. A slow, liquid countdown to the morning. As you watch that imaginary drop of wax slide down, feel your own thoughts sliding, moving downward, melting away into the stillness. In the hallway, the shadows are even longer. Because the walls are covered in dark, patterned wallpaper, the light from a passing lamp doesn't bounce, it disappears. It is like walking through a dream where the edges of the world are blurred and soft. The Victorians lived their lives in this half-light. They learned to recognize faces by the sound of a voice or the shape of a silhouette. They moved slowly, carefully, navigating a world of obstacles they could barely see. This forced a pace of life that was naturally calm. There was no reason to hurry when the path ahead was a mystery of gray and charcoal. You are adopting that pace now. Your mind is no longer searching for details. It is content with the blur. It is happy in the gloom. Consider the lucifer matches used to light the lamps. The sharp, rhythmic scritch against the stone. The sudden flare of blue and yellow. And then, the steady hiss of the wick as it takes hold. This was a ritual performed 100 times a night. A servant moving from room to room, bringing a tiny circle of light, only to have it fade as soon as they left. It was a losing battle against the night. The house wanted to be dark. The stone foundations, the oak beams, the brick chimneys, they all belonged to the shadows. And as you sit here, you feel yourself belonging to the shadows too. They are not cold, they are a warm, protective weight. There is a specific kind of shadow that lived in the corners of the high ceilings. A shadow that never moved, not even in the middle of the day. It was a permanent, dusty veil that sat above the chandeliers. If you look up in your mind, you can see it. A soft, dark cloud that holds the silence of 100 years. It doesn't move. It doesn't change. It just exists. It is the most boring thing in the world, a static, dark space where nothing ever happens. Let your gaze rest in that high corner. Let your eyes grow heavy as they stare into that unchanging, peaceful nothingness. Think of the shadow side of Victorian decor. The dark mahoganies, the deep crimsons, the forest greens. These colors were chosen because they didn't show the soot, but they also serve to deepen the night. In the evening, a red curtain doesn't look red, it looks like a fold of black velvet. A green chair looks like a shadow you can sit in. The house dissolves its identity into the darkness. It becomes a singular, quiet, unified space. No boundaries. No sharp edges. Just a slow, continuous flow of dimness. You are flowing with it. The life in the shadows was a life of intimacy. Because light was limited, people had to draw closer to one another to read, to sew, or to speak. They gathered around the single lamp, a small circle of humanity in a vast, dark hall. Outside that circle, the rest of the mansion was a silent, empty wilderness. You are in that wilderness now. You are away from the circle of light. You are in the quiet, outer reaches of the room, where the air is still and the shadows are deepest. Here, you don't have to participate. You don't have to listen. You just have to be. Sometimes, a draft would catch the flame of a lamp, causing the shadows on the wall to dance. Huge, silent shapes that stretched across the ceiling, bending and twisting in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. They look like the branches of trees in a dark forest. They move back and forth, a silent, visual lullaby. Swing and return. Stretch and shrink. You watch them with heavy lids, your mind following the rhythm, until the movement itself becomes a blur, and the blur becomes a darkness. By the late Victorian period, gaslight began to appear. It brought a different kind of shadow. A sharper, flickering shadow that hissed as it moved. But even gaslight could not conquer the mansion. It only created deeper pockets of blackness in the rooms it couldn't reach. The house was too large, too old, to ever be truly bright. It accepted the light for a few hours, and then, as the wicks were turned down, it greedily pulled the shadows back over its heart. The lamps are being extinguished now. One by one, the golden beads of light are disappearing. First in the parlors, then in the hallways. Finally, the last candle in the library is snuffed out. Imagine the smell of the smoke rising from the cooling wick. A thin, gray ribbon of scent that drifts through the dark. It is the smell of the end of the day. The smell of the beginning of sleep. Now, the darkness is total. But it is not a scary darkness. It is the darkness of the womb. It is the darkness of the earth. It is the darkness of a history that is finally at peace. You can no longer see the furniture. You can no longer see the walls. You are just a point of consciousness in a vast, silent, shadowed universe. The life in the shadows is a quiet life. It is a life where your heartbeat is the loudest sound. It is a life where your breath is the only movement. You are sinking into the floorboards, into the carpets, into the very stone of the mansion. The shadows are not just around you, they are within you. They are calming your nerves, slowing your pulse, and preparing you for a rest that will last until the sun remembers the world again. The mansion is now a silhouette against the stars. Inside, there is only the deep, boring, beautiful gloom. Every shadow has found its place. Every light has gone home. You are safe. You are hidden. You are still. Sleep now. In the long shadows. Sleep. The night is yours. Sleep. We move now from the soft, natural flicker of the candle to a more modern, more mechanical, and more mysterious light. This is the era of the gas lamp. In the late Victorian mansion, the introduction of gaslight was a marvel, but it brought with it a strange, heavy, and hypnotic danger. As we settle into the dim, greenish glow of the gaslit parlor, notice how the air itself feels different. It is thicker, warmer, and carries a faint, metallic hiss that never truly stops. Feel that rhythm, that constant, boring vibration of the gas moving through the pipes, as it begins to numb your senses and pull you down into a deep, heavy slumber. Imagine the pipes, a vast, invisible network of lead and iron, buried deep behind the silk wallpaper and the plaster moldings. They are the veins of the house, carrying the coal gas from the dark cellar to every room in the mansion. It is a silent, constant flow. If you were to press your ear against the wall, you might hear it, a tiny, distant hum, the sound of the house breathing through its metal lungs. It is a repetitive sound, a sound of industry hidden within a home. Let that hum become the background to your thoughts, a steady, unchanging drone that masks every other noise, every other worry, until there is only the sound of the flow. Now, look up at the gasolier hanging from the ceiling. It is a grand structure of brass and etched glass. The light it provides is not like the warm, orange glow of the fire. It is a pale, slightly green, and shivering light. Watch the flame inside the glass globe. It is not still. It flickers with a rhythmic, nervous pulse. Flutter, flutter, still. Flutter, flutter, still. This movement is caused by the tiny variations in the pressure of the gas, moving through miles of pipe. It is a mechanical heartbeat. As you watch that shivering flame, your eyes begin to tire. The flickering is too fast to follow, yet too slow to ignore. Your gaze softens, your eyelids grow heavy, and the room begins to blur into a soft, emerald haze. Gaslight brought a new kind of fatigue to the Victorian mansion. As the lamps burned, they consumed the oxygen in the room, replacing it with a thin, invisible mist of carbon and sulfur. It was a slow, creeping process. In a room with the doors and windows tightly closed against the winter cold, the air would grow heavy. People would find themselves feeling a strange, dull pressure behind their eyes. Their voices would grow softer. Their movements would become sluggish. It was known as the gaslight headache, but it was more than that. It was a forced relaxation. The air was literally putting the house to sleep. You can feel that weight now, a gentle, invisible pressure on your forehead, encouraging you to close your eyes and let the air carry you away. Think of the soot that gaslight produced. It was even finer than the soot from the coal fire. A thin, greasy film that settled on everything. It coated the mirrors, making reflections look like they were coming from another world. It settled on the leaves of the indoor palms, turning their green fronds into a dull, gray velvet. The world felt padded. Every surface felt soft and muffled. This film was the physical manifestation of the gas, a quiet, spreading layer of boredom. There is no need to clean it now. Let it settle. Let the world become a little more blurred, a little more distant. There was a constant, tiny sound associated with gaslight, the hiss. It was the sound of the gas escaping through the small burner tip. A high-pitched, steady, and monotonous SSSSSSSSSS. It never changed its note. It never changed its volume. It was the most consistent sound in the Victorian night. If you listen closely in your mind, you can hear it now. It is like the sound of a distant waterfall, or the wind moving through dry grass. It is white noise for the 19th century. It fills the gaps between your thoughts, smoothing over the edges of your mind until every sharp idea is rounded off and every worry is silenced by the hiss. The danger of Gaslight was its unpredictability. A pilot light might blow out, or a pipe might leak, filling a room with the sweet, sickly smell of unburnt gas. But in a large, drafty mansion, this often just led to a deeper, more profound lethargy. People would sit in their chairs, their books sliding from their laps, their heads nodding, as the gas worked its silent magic. It was a house under a spell. A mechanical enchantment. You are under that same spell now. The air is heavy, the light is flickering, and the world is fading. Consider the glass globes that surrounded the flames. They were often etched with patterns of flowers, ferns, or frosted lines. The flickering light cast these patterns onto the walls, creating a forest of moving shadows. These shadows didn't just move, they throbbed. Large, soft, and rhythmic. They pulsed in time with the hiss of the gas. Throb, throb, throb. It is a visual pulse that matches your own heartbeat. You are syncing with the house. You are moving at the speed of the gas lamp. Slow, steady, and unchanging. The servant would come around at the end of the evening to turn down the gas. This was a delicate, boring task. They would take a long pull with a key at the end and slowly, very slowly, turn the brass valve. Watch the flame as it shrinks. It goes from a bright leaf to a small bead to a tiny, blue, glowing point. The hiss grows quieter. The flickering stops. The shadows on the wall dissolve into a single, unified darkness. This reduction of light is like the reduction of your own energy. You are being turned down, slowly and carefully, until you are just a tiny point of warmth in a dark room. The danger of the gas is gone now, leaving only the silence. The pipes are closed. The valves are tight. But the air remains heavy, a lingering reminder of the evening's glow. It is a comfortable weight, like a heavy wool blanket that has been pulled up to your chin. It keeps you still. It keeps you safe. Imagine the entire mansion, room after room, floor after floor, all with their gas lamps turned low. A house filled with tiny, blue, sleeping stars. No one is talking. No one is moving. The hiss has faded into a memory. The flickering has stopped. The green haze has turned to a deep, velvet black. Your mind is now as empty as a glass globe. There is no light left to reflect. There is no gas left to burn. There is only the stillness of the lead pipes, the silence of the brass valves, and the peace of a house that is finally, truly, quiet. The history of the light is over for tonight. The dangers are forgotten. The mechanical heart has slowed to a stop. You are drifting in the cool, heavy air that remains. Sleep now. In the fading hiss. Sleep. Let the shadows take you. Sleep. We move now to a part of mansion life that was never seen by the guests and rarely spoken of by the family. It is the slow, rhythmic, and incredibly tedious world of Victorian hygiene. In a time before modern plumbing, cleanliness was not a matter of turning a tap, it was a logistical marathon. It was a story of gravity, of muscle, and of the endless movement of water. As we listen to the sound of water being carried, bucket by bucket, through the silent halls, feel a sense of fluid relaxation washing over you, starting at the top of your head, and moving slowly, very slowly, down to your toes. Imagine the source of all water in the mansion. Deep in the cold, stone basement, there is a heavy iron pump. It sits over a well that reaches down into the dark, silent earth. To bring water into the house, a servant must grip the cold, wooden handle of the pump. Squeak, clunk, splash. Squeak, clunk, splash. The rhythm is unchanging. The water comes up from the darkness, cold and clear, spilling into a heavy copper bucket. Watch the water as it rises in the pail. It swirls in a slow, hypnotic circle, a small whirlpool of silver in the dim basement light. Squeak, clunk, splash. The sound is the heartbeat of the house's morning. Now, imagine the weight of that water. A single gallon of water weighs over 8 pounds. A large copper pail, filled to the brim, is a heavy, demanding burden. The invisible army of servants must carry this weight up the stairs, one step at a time. Step, pause, step, pause. They move through the narrow, back staircases, where the air is cool and smells of damp stone. The water in the bucket sloshes gently, a rhythmic, liquid sound that matches the pace of their climb. Swish, swish, swish. It is a boring, repetitive journey that happens every single day, year after year. Let that rhythmic sloshing lull your mind, as if you are being carried, slowly, up into the quiet heights of the house. In the master bedroom, the hygiene ritual begins with the washstand. It is a piece of furniture topped with a thick, cold slab of marble. On top of the marble sits a large porcelain basin and a matching pitcher. The servant pours the water from the bucket into the pitcher, and then from the pitcher into the basin. Listen to the sound of the pour. A long, continuous, hollow splash. It is the sound of luxury in the 19th century, the sound of water that has been carried 100 yards, just for a morning wash. The sound is steady, predictable, and incredibly calming. The water in the basin is still now. It is a perfect, silver mirror, reflecting the dim light of the early morning. There is no movement in the room. The porcelain is white and smooth. The marble is gray and cold. The ritual of washing is slow. A linen cloth is dipped into the water, squeezed out, and used in a quiet, methodical way. There is no rushing here. Cleanliness is a ceremony of patience. As you think about the stillness of that water, feel your own mind becoming like that silver mirror. Clear, quiet, and perfectly still. Consider the logistics of the sponge bath. Before the era of the fixed bathtub, most residents of the mansion washed piece by piece. It was a boring, repetitive process of scrubbing and drying, scrubbing and drying. The towel is thick and heavy, smelling of lye soap and the outdoors. The movement of the cloth is rhythmic, a soft, friction-filled sound against the skin. It is a sensory experience that grounds the body, focusing the mind on the simple, repetitive task of the present moment. Past and future disappear. There is only the water, the cloth, and the silence. But what of the slops? This is the most boring part of the cycle. Once the water has been used, it must be carried back down. The slop pail is a heavy, galvanized bucket that collects the gray water from every basin in the house. Once again, the servant must make the journey. Down the long corridors, down the narrow stairs, back to the drains in the yard. It is the reverse of the morning's work. An endless loop of up and down, clean and used, full and empty. This cycle is the true history of the house. Not the grand balls, but the endless movement of buckets. Up and down. Up and down. Think of the soap used in these mansions. It was not the soft, scented liquid of today. It was a hard, yellow block of Castile soap. It had a clean, sharp, and very boring smell. It didn't lather much, it simply did its job. Imagine the soap dish, a small porcelain tray with little holes to let the water drain. The soap sits there, slowly, very slowly, drying in the cool air of the washroom. It is an object of total utility. Watch it in your mind, unchanging, silent, and still. As the house grew older, running water began to appear, but it was a slow, gravity-fed system. A large lead tank in the attic would collect rainwater, which would then trickle down through narrow lead pipes to the floors below. If you were to listen in the walls, you might hear a faint, distant drip, drip, drip. It is the sound of the house's plumbing, a slow, liquid ticking clock. It tells you that the water is moving, but it is in no hurry. It moves at the pace of the Victorian era, a pace that respects the night. The logistics of hygiene created a house that was always slightly damp, always slightly cool. This dampness muffled the air. It made the carpets feel heavier. It made the wallpaper peel ever so slightly at the edges. But it also brought a sense of freshness to the gloom. The smell of clean water and linen is the smell of a house at peace. It is a smell that invites you to lay your head down, to feel the coolness of the pillowcase, and to let the rhythm of the buckets carry you into sleep. All the pitchers are full now. All the basins are empty and dry. The servants have finished their final rounds. The iron pump in the basement is silent. The handle is still. The water in the well is deep, dark, and unmoving. The house has been cleaned, the rituals are complete, and the cycle of hygiene has come to a rest for the night. You feel as though you have been washed by the history of the house. The weight of the day has been carried down the back stairs. The noise of the world has been poured away. You are clean, you are cool, and you are very, very tired. The marble of the washstand is cold. The porcelain is white. The shadows are long. There is nothing left to do but drift. Drift like a leaf on the surface of a still, dark pond. The water is still. The house is still. Sleep now. In the cool, clean silence. Sleep. Let the rhythm wash over you. Sleep. In our journey through the Victorian mansion, we have seen the grand halls and the silent shadows, but now we come to one of the most exhausting luxuries of the 19th century. The full bath. What we consider a simple daily task was, in this house, a major operation. It was a theater of labor, a slow-motion ordeal that required hours of preparation and a relentless cycle of effort. As we describe the heavy steam and the rhythmic pouring of water, feel a sense of warmth beginning to rise around you, wrapping you in a soft, humid, and incredibly peaceful embrace. Imagine the bathtub itself. It is not a fixed fixture in a tiled room. It is a portable, heavy vessel made of hammered copper or cold, gray tin. During the day, it sits upright in a dark closet, hidden away like a silent gargantua. When the hour of the bath arrives, it must be hauled out by two servants, its metal frame scraping softly against the floorboards. Scrape, slide, stop. It is placed in front of the bedroom fireplace, a cold, empty island waiting for the tide. Watch the firelight reflecting off the dull metal, a flickering, amber dance that promises a warmth that is still a long way off. The true ordeal, however, lies in the water. To fill a bathtub, one needs gallons upon gallons of near-boiling water. And that water begins its life 4 floors below, on the massive coal range in the kitchen. Imagine the great copper boilers sitting on the stove. The water inside is beginning to hum, a low, vibrating sound as it reaches its peak. A servant ladles the water into heavy, insulated cans. These cans are the primary tools of this ordeal. They are heavy, their handles biting into the palms of the invisible army as they begin the ascent. The climb is a masterpiece of boring, repetitive struggle. Up the narrow back stairs they go, 1 can in each hand, the steam rising into their faces, blurring their vision. Step, breath, step, breath. They must move carefully. A single slip would send scalding water across the wood, but they do not slip. They move with the steady, mechanical precision of a clock's gears. As you think of their footsteps on the stairs, let your own heart rate find that same, slow, heavy rhythm. There is no hurry. The bath will take as long as the bath takes. The house does not rush, and neither should you. Now, the cans reach the bedroom. The first servant kneels beside the tub and begins to pour. Listen to the sound. It is a deep, resonant splash echoing inside the hollow metal of the tub. Gurgle, splash, hiss. As the hot water hits the cold metal, a thick, white mist begins to rise. It curls around the legs of the bed, it dampens the velvet curtains, it softens the sharp edges of the furniture. The room is transforming. It is no longer a formal space, it is becoming a warm, private sanctuary of steam. But 1 can is not enough. Nor are 2. Or 5. It takes a dozen trips to fill the tub to a depth of only a few inches. Imagine the cycle. The empty cans go down, the full cans come up. Down and up. Down and up. It is a boring, beautiful loop of service. Each pour adds another layer of warmth, another layer of steam, until the air in the room is heavy and sweet. Your eyelids are beginning to feel the weight of that steam. They are growing damp, soft, and very, very heavy. You are breathing in the warmth, letting it fill your lungs, and slow your thoughts to a crawl. The water in the tub is now a deep, amber pool, reflecting the glowing coals of the hearth. The bather enters, but even this is not a moment of modern relaxation. It is a moment of stillness. In the Victorian era, you did not splash, you did not soak for hours in bubbles. You sat in the shallow water, and used a natural sponge to move the warmth over your skin. The sponge is heavy, holding the water like a living thing. You squeeze it, and the water rains down, a rhythmic, pitter-patter sound against the surface of the tub. Drip, drop, drip. It is the sound of a private rainstorm inside a silent house. Think of the temperature. Because the tub is not insulated, it begins to lose its heat the moment it is poured. The steam continues to rise, but the water is slowly, very slowly, returning to the temperature of the room. This is a lesson in the transience of all things. The warmth is a guest, and it is already preparing to leave. This realization doesn't bring anxiety, it brings a profound sense of peace. You are caught in the middle of a fading warmth, a perfect moment that is slowly, boringly, disappearing. You don't need to hold on to it. You can just let it go. The ordeal is not yet finished. Once the bath is over, the water must be removed. This is perhaps the most tedious part of the history. the water cannot be drained. It must be bailed out, bowl by bowl, bucket by bucket, and carried back down those same narrow stairs. Imagine the servant kneeling by the tub, the water now gray and cool. Dip, pour, dip, pour. It is a task that defies time. It is a labor that has no glory. It is simply something that must be done, over and over, until the tub is once again a cold, empty vessel of gray tin. The metal of the tub is finally dry. It is hauled back into its closet, disappearing into the shadows. The fire in the hearth is dying, the steam has settled as a fine mist on the window pane. The ordeal is over. The silence has returned, but it is a different kind of silence now. It is a clean, humid, and exhausted silence. The house has put forth its greatest effort, and now it is ready to collapse into the night. You feel the remnants of that bath on your own skin. A lingering warmth, a softness in your muscles, a quietness in your mind. The logistics of the water, the weight of the cans, the rhythm of the pour, they have all combined to strip away your last remaining defenses. You are as empty as the tub, as quiet as the steam, and as still as the shadows. The bedroom is dark now. The only light is the faint, red glow of the embers. The air is cool, but your body remembers the heat. You are sinking into the mattress, letting the heavy wool blankets pull you down, down, into the depths of the 19th century. The ordeal of the bath is a memory. The servants are asleep. The water is gone. There is only the night. Sleep now. In the damp, quiet warmth. Sleep. Let the history wash over you. Sleep. As we delve deeper into the quiet night of the mansion, we must pull back the curtain on the most private of realities. Beyond the silk tapestries, beyond the gilded mirrors, lies a world of humble necessity. This is the history of the unseen chambers. Despite the grandeur of the architecture, the Victorian mansion was a place of primitive logistics. In a time when the porcelain palace of the modern bathroom was still a distant dream, the bedroom was the center of a slow, repetitive, and incredibly silent cycle of maintenance. As we describe the stillness of these hidden cabinets, feel your own thoughts being tucked away, safely, into the quiet corners of the past. Imagine the bedside cabinet, a small, heavy piece of dark mahogany or walnut. It sits in the shadow of the great four-poster bed, silent and unassuming. Within its wooden door lies a small, white porcelain vessel. This is the chamber pot, an object of absolute utility. It is a cold, smooth, and unchanging object. Every evening, it is placed there by the invisible army. Every morning, it is removed. It is a cycle that has no glory, no drama, and no noise. It is the rhythmic pulse of the mundane, a boring beat that keeps the grand house moving. The porcelain is cold to the touch. Imagine the texture, smooth like a river stone, reflecting the dim light of the dying fire. It sits on a small lace doily, a tiny touch of elegance for an object of such humble purpose. The repetition of its use is a lesson in the simplicity of human life. No matter how high the ceilings, no matter how grand the balls, the basic needs remains the same. There is a peace in this realization. A grounding, steadying peace. You are not a guest at a ball, you are a soul in a quiet room, surrounded by the honest, boring objects of history. In the morning, the ritual of the slop maid begins. This is a task of profound silence. She enters the room like a shadow, moving with a practiced, heavy step. She opens the cabinet door. Creak. The sound is soft, a tiny, wooden protest in the silence of the dawn. She carries the porcelain vessel away, covered with a small, matching lid to maintain the illusion of the grand house. She walks down the back stairs, the same stairs we have traveled many times. Step, pause, step, pause. The weight is light, but the responsibility is constant. It is a labor of pure repetition. Think of the washstand again, which we visited earlier. It works in tandem with the unseen chamber. The water used for the morning wash is poured into the slop pail, mixing with the remnants of the night. It is a fluid history, a liquid record of the day's beginning. The maid pours the water with a long, steady, hollow sound. Glug, splash, glug. It is a sound that fills the quiet room, then fades, leaving the air even stiller than before. This sound is a signal that the night is over, but for you, it is a signal to sink even deeper into the blankets. The unseen chambers were not just about the pots. They were about the commode, a larger piece of furniture disguised as an armchair. It was a masterpiece of Victorian deception. A chair that was not a chair. A luxury that was actually a necessity. Imagine the thick, velvet cushion on top. You lift it, and underneath lies the hidden porcelain. The wood is polished, the hinges are oiled, the secret is kept. This obsession with hiding the mundane is part of the mansion's charm. It is a house of masks, and as you think about those masks, let your own face relax. Let the tension of the day fall away, leaving only the quiet, honest truth of your own rest. The maintenance of these chambers required a constant supply of water and cloth. Imagine the laundry where the clouts were washed. Hundreds of small, white linen cloths, boiling in a copper vat. They move in the water like white ghosts. Slosh, turn, slosh. They are scrubbed on a wooden board, the ridges of the wood creating a rhythmic, grating sound. Scrub, rinse, scrub. This is the sound of the unseen world. It is a boring, tiring sound, but it is the sound that keeps the mansion clean. It is the sound of 1,000 silent days, repeating forever. By the end of the Victorian era, water closets began to appear, but they were often placed in cold, dark rooms at the end of a long, drafty corridor. Most people preferred the warmth of their own bedroom and the simplicity of the porcelain vessel. It was a choice between progress and comfort. And in this house, comfort is always found in the old ways. The slow ways. The boring ways. You are choosing that comfort now. You are rejecting the rush of the modern world for the quiet, still life of the unseen chamber. The cabinet door is closed now. The porcelain is clean and dry. The room is silent. The slop maid has finished her rounds and disappeared back into the basement. The unseen reality of the house has been managed, tucked away, and forgotten for another day. This completeness brings a sense of profound order. Everything has been tended to. Every need has been met. There is nothing left to worry about. Think of the scent of the room now. It is the smell of lavender, old wood, and a faint, metallic tang from the copper pails. It is a clean, cold, and very still smell. It is the smell of a room that is ready for sleep. The air is unmoving. The shadows are long. The bed is a vast, white island in the center of the gloom. You are drifting toward that island, moving through the shadows of the cabinets, past the hidden porcelain, and into the soft, heavy blankets. The grand house is a shell. The real life happens in these small, quiet rituals. The history of the mansion is not written in the gold leaf, but in the porcelain. It is a humble, boring, and beautiful history. It is a history that knows the value of rest. Your mind is as quiet as the unseen chamber. Your thoughts are tucked away behind a wooden door. You are safe. You are still. The mansion is holding you in its silent embrace. From the highest peak of the roof to the hidden pots in the cabinets, the house is at peace. Everything is in its place. The day is gone. The cycle is complete. Sleep now. In the heart of the bedroom. Sleep. Let the porcelain be still. Sleep. As we stand in the cold, still air of the upper landing, we must consider the armor that the Victorians wore to survive their own homes. In this grand mansion, fashion was not merely a matter of beauty, it was a dress code of survival. Because the stone walls held the winter chill like a tomb, and the fires were only small bubbles of heat, the people of the 19th century lived their lives wrapped in layers of heavy, suffocating wool. As we describe the weight of these garments, the texture of the fabric, and the slow, boring ritual of dressing, feel your own body becoming heavy, as if you are being wrapped in a warm, protective cocoon of history. Imagine the first layer of survival. The long-sleeved undergarments made of thick, cream-colored flannel. It is a coarse, honest fabric. It sits close to the skin, trapping the body's natural warmth. Feel the weight of it in your mind. It is not light like modern cotton. It has a presence. It is a constant, soft pressure against the arms and the legs. There is a repetitive, boring comfort in the feeling of flannel. It creates a microclimate between the skin and the world. A private sanctuary of warmth that moves with you through the drafty halls. As you think of this layer, feel your own skin relaxing, becoming soft and warm, beneath the imaginary weight of the wool. Above the flannel comes the structure. For a woman in this mansion, this meant the corset and the crinoline, but for our journey tonight, we focus on the petticoats. Imagine 3, 4, 5 layers of heavy linen and wool. They hang from the waist like the rings of a tree. Every time she moves, there is a sound. A soft, rhythmic swish, rustle, swish. It is the sound of a house in motion. A slow, predictable sound that follows her from the morning room to the library. The weight of these skirts is immense. They pull at the hips, they anchor the body to the floor. They make it impossible to move quickly. And in this house, there is no need to move quickly. The clothes dictate a pace of life that is slow, deliberate, and incredibly boring. Now, consider the gentleman's attire. He wears a frock coat made of wool so thick it feels like felt. It is a heavy, dark, and light-absorbing garment. To put it on is to step into a cage of fabric. His collar is not soft, it is a stiff, white band of starched linen. It holds his head high, forcing him to look straight ahead. It limits his movement. It turns every turn of the head into a slow, mechanical gesture. This stiffness is part of the survival. It discourages exertion. It encourages stillness. As you think of that high, stiff collar, feel your own neck muscles relaxing. Let your head sink back into the pillow, releasing the need to look around, releasing the need to move. Think of the buttons. A Victorian outfit was held together by dozens, sometimes hundreds, of tiny, repetitive buttons. Small globes of bone, or pearl, or cloth-covered metal. Imagine the servant's fingers moving down the back of a dress. Button, loop, button, loop. It is a tedious, minute task. It takes 10 minutes just to close a single garment. There is no rushing the buttons. They require patience. They require a mind that is content with small, boring movements. As you visualize this process, let your own thoughts become small and focused. One button, then another. Moving slowly down the line until the world outside the task disappears. And then there are the shawls. In the evening, as the fires burn low, another layer is added. A large, heavy triangle of knitted wool draped over the shoulders. It has a fringe of long, soft tassels. When you sit in a chair, the shawl wraps around you like a second skin. It smells of lavender and the faint, metallic scent of the cold air. The weight of it on your shoulders is grounding. It reminds you that you are protected. It reminds you that the house is large, but you are small and warm. You can feel that weight now, a gentle, steady pressure on your shoulders, pulling you down, deeper into the softness of your bed. The fabrics of the 19th century were designed to last a lifetime. They were not disposable. They were heavy, durable, and unchanging. A wool dress might be worn for 10 winters. The fabric remembers the body. It holds the shape of the person who wore it. There is a profound silence in old clothes. They are like empty shells, waiting in the dark closets of the mansion. Imagine the wardrobes, filled with these heavy, silent shadows. Rows of wool, stacks of linen, boxes of lace. All of them sitting in the dark, unmoving, and perfectly still. Consider the ritual of undressing at the end of a long, cold day. This is the most relaxing part of the history. The layers are removed, one by one. The heavy wool coat is taken off, and the weight leaves the shoulders. The stiff collar is unclipped, and the neck feels free. The petticoats are dropped, and the legs feel light. It is a process of shedding the world. With every layer that is removed, you feel yourself becoming lighter, softer, and more ready for sleep. The survival is over. The day has been navigated. Now, there is only the flannel. The flannel nightgown is the final layer. It is long, reaching down to the floor. It is warm, and it smells of clean laundry. As you slip into it, in your mind, you feel the softness of the fabric against your skin. It is the ultimate comfort. It is the reward for a day of heavy wool and stiff linen. It is the texture of sleep. The mansion is cold, the stone is freezing, and the wind is whistling through the cracks in the window frames. But you are wrapped in flannel. You are tucked under 3 layers of heavy wool blankets. You are wearing the dress coat of the night. You are safe from the cold. You are safe from the history. Your body feels like a heavy weight in the center of the bed. You are anchored by the blankets, by the flannel, and by the silence of the room. Your breath is slow and steady, a rhythmic pulse in the dark. The clothes are folded on the chair. The buttons are silent. The wool is at rest. There is nothing left to wear, and nothing left to do. Sleep now. Wrapped in the warmth. Sleep. Let the layers protect you. Sleep. We descend now, slowly, down the grand staircase, toward the most formal theater of the mansion. The dining room. In the 1890s, dinner was not merely a meal, It was a ritual of endurance. A slow, structured, and incredibly repetitive ceremony that could last for hours. As you enter this space, notice the change in the air. It is warmer here, thick with the scent of roasted meats, beeswax candles, and the heavy, sweet aroma of aged wine. Feel the weight of the formality settling over your shoulders, a silver-gray fog of tradition that tells you there is no need to hurry. You are here to sit, to wait, and to drift. Imagine the table. It is a massive expanse of dark, polished mahogany, stretching out like a frozen lake in the center of the room. It has been polished by the invisible army for hours, until its surface reflects the candle flames like stars on a dark night. Look at the place settings. They are arranged with a boring, mathematical precision. A forest of silver forks, knives, and spoons. Each one has a specific purpose, and each one will be used in a specific, unchanging order. The repetition of the silver is hypnotic. Line after line, circle after circle, reflecting the dim, orange light of the room. Think of the silence of the service. The guests are seated, their movements restricted by the heavy wool and stiff collars we have already described. They do not reach for things. They do not move quickly. They wait. And as they wait, the servants move behind them like shadows. You hear the soft, rhythmic clink of silver against porcelain. Clink, pause, clink. It is the only music of the meal. A servant leans in from the left, offering a silver platter. The food is arranged in neat, repetitive patterns. You take a portion, and the servant disappears into the gloom. Then, the wait begins again. The dining room ritual is a cycle of courses. Soup, fish, roast, game, sweets. Each course is a miniature play. The arrival, the consumption, the removal. Between each course, there is a long, empty space of time. In these gaps, there is nothing to do but watch the candles. Watch the wax as it melts and pools in the silver babeshes. Watch the tiny, blue heart of the flame as it shivers in the draft. Your mind begins to wander in these spaces. It drifts away from the conversation, away from the room, and into the dark corners of the ceiling. The ritual is so long, and so predictable, that your brain simply begins to shut down. It surrenders to the rhythm of the meal. Consider the textures of the table. The tablecloth is made of heavy, white damask linen. It has a pattern woven into it, roses or ivy, that you can only see when the light hits it at a certain angle. You trace the pattern with your eyes, following the vines as they weave around the silver salt cellars. The linen is cool and crisp under your hands. The napkins are enormous, thick enough to be small blankets. You feel the weight of the fabric on your lap, a comforting, grounding pressure. Everything in this room is designed to be heavy. The silver, the glass, the food, even the air. This heaviness is pulling at you, encouraging you to stay in your chair, to stay still, to stay quiet. The wine is poured with a slow, liquid gurgle. A deep, red claret that catches the light like a ruby. You watch the servant's hand, steady and sure, as they fill the crystal glass. The glass is etched with tiny, repetitive stars. You take a sip, and the warmth of the wine spreads slowly through your chest. It is a heavy, dulling warmth. It matches the warmth of the fire in the hearth. It slows your pulse. It softens the edges of the room. The voices of the other guests become a distant, muffled hum, like the sound of bees in a summer garden. You don't need to hear the words. You only need the sound. Now, think of the crumbing. Between the main course and the dessert, a servant moves around the table with a small, silver brush and a tray. They are removing the tiny crumbs of bread from the white cloth. Sweep, sweep, sweep. It is a task of extreme, beautiful boredom. They move with a rhythmic, mechanical grace. One place setting, then the next. The silver brush makes a soft, scratching sound against the linen. It is a cleaning ritual in the middle of a meal. A reminder that the mansion's battle against chaos never stops, even now. As you watch the brush move, feel your own mind being swept clean of its last few thoughts. The meal is nearing its end. The heavy meats are gone, replaced by delicate jellies and fruits. But the formality remains. The dessert spoons are used, then removed. The finger bowls are brought, crystal bowls filled with cool water and a single, floating rose petal. You dip your fingers into the water. It is a shocking, pleasant coolness. You watch the rose petals swirl in a slow, circular path. Round and round. It has no destination. It is just moving with the water. You are that rose petal, drifting in the slow currents of the ritual. Finally, the withdrawal begins. The ladies rise and move to the drawing room, their heavy silk skirts rustling like a field of dry wheat. The men remain, the air filling with the thick, blue smoke of cigars. The ritual has split, but the pace remains the same. In the drawing room, the tea is poured. Splash, drip, stir. The sound of the silver spoon against the porcelain cup is a high, clear note in the silence. It is the signal that the day is almost over. The dining room is now being cleared. The invisible army returns to extinguish the candles. One by one, the stars on the mahogany lake disappear. The room returns to the shadows. The ritual is complete. The endurance test has been passed. You have sat through the long, boring, beautiful theater of the Victorian dinner, and it has left you exhausted. Your body feels like lead. Your mind is a soft, gray cloud. The scents of the meal linger in your nose, but they are fading now, replaced by the smell of the cool, night air. You are ready to leave the table. You are ready to leave the room. You are ready to follow the shadows back up the stairs. The mahogany is dark. The silver is silent. The linen is still. The ritual of the dining room has done its work. It has slowed your world to a standstill. You are drifting, floating, moving away from the light. Sleep now. In the afterglow of the feast. Sleep. The table is empty. The night is full. Sleep. As we move away from the lingering echoes of the dining room, we begin to notice a silent barrier that runs through the very heart of the mansion. This is the history of gendered spaces. In the 1890s, the house was not a shared home, it was a map of strictly specialized territories. Rooms were divided by an invisible line, separated by gender, purpose, and atmosphere. To move from the masculine world to the feminine world was to cross into a different climate, a different scent, and a different rhythm of life. As we explore these separate islands of existence, feel the predictability of this order settling over you, a comforting, binary world where every person has their place, and every room has its own, boring, beautiful silence. Imagine first the masculine domain, the smoking room. It is a place of heavy, dark, and light-absorbing textures. The walls are often covered in deep red or forest green embossed leather. Feel the surface of that leather in your mind. It is cool, tough, and patterned with tiny, repetitive scrolls. The air here is thick with the ghosts of 1,000 cigars. It is a dense, brownish atmosphere that feels like a weight against your skin. The furniture is massive, made of dark oak and stuffed with horsehair, making it firm and unforgiving. There is no softness here. It is a world of logic, of silence, and of slow, steady exhales. Watch the smoke in the smoking room. It doesn't move quickly. It hangs in the air in long, horizontal ribbons, drifting slowly, very slowly, toward the heavy velvet curtains. It is a boring, hypnotic movement. You follow a single ribbon of smoke as it twists, curls, and dissolves into the shadows. As you watch, your own breath begins to match that slow, drifting pace. You are becoming as still as the heavy oak table. You are becoming as quiet as the leather-bound books. The masculinity of the space is a shield, a rigid structure that protects you from the chaos of the world. Now, we cross the invisible line. We move toward the feminine sanctuary, the morning room. As you step through the doorway, the world changes. The heavy, dark leather is gone, replaced by pale, silk wallpaper. The scent of cigar smoke vanishes, replaced by the faint, delicate aroma of dried lavender and rose petals. The air feels lighter here, thinner, and cooler. The colors are soft, creams, pale pinks, and watery blues. It is a world designed for the eyes, but it is just as quiet, and just as repetitive as the world we left behind. In the morning room, the ritual is the needlework. Imagine a woman sitting in a low, velvet chair. She is working on a piece of embroidery, a forest of silk flowers. Watch her hand. Up and down. Stitch and pull. Up and down. The needle makes a tiny, rhythmic snip as it passes through the tight fabric. It is a task that requires no thought, only the endless repetition of the hand. One petal, then another. One leaf, then another. The embroidery is a record of hours lived in total stillness. As you visualize that needle moving, feel your own thoughts being woven into the fabric of the night. Up and down, until the movement becomes a blur. These gendered spaces were the pillars of Victorian order. A man did not belong in the morning room, and a woman did not belong in the smoking room. This separation created a sense of total predictability. You always knew what you would find behind each door. In the library, you would find the smell of paper and the cold, metallic sound of the clock. In the drawing room, you would find the soft, muffled sound of tea being poured. There were no surprises in the mansion. The geography of the house was a blueprint for a quiet, boring, and structured life. This structure is your safety. It allows you to let go of the need to explore, the need to wonder. You are exactly where you are supposed to be. Consider the different textures of the chairs in these spaces. The masculine chair is covered in smooth, cold leather that makes a soft, creaking sound when you move. The feminine chair is covered in soft, warm velvet that swallows every sound. One is for thinking, the other is for dreaming. You are moving between these two sensations now. The cold and the warm. The hard and the soft. The logic and the dream. They are merging together in your mind, creating a gray, neutral, and perfectly peaceful space. A space where gender no longer matters, only the stillness remains. Think of the waiting. In a house of gendered spaces, people spent a lot of time waiting for one another. The men waiting for the women to finish dressing. The women waiting for the men to finish their cigars. Waiting is a boring, quiet art. It is the art of doing nothing while the house settles around you. You are practicing that art now. You are waiting for nothing but sleep. You are listening to the silence of the separate rooms, a silence that is doubled by the distance between them. The separate staircases, the separate corridors, the separate worlds. They all lead to the same night. The separate candles are extinguished at different times, but the darkness that follows is the same for everyone. The smoking room goes dark. The morning room goes dark. The leather and the silk disappear into the same velvet black. The order of the day is dissolving. The invisible line is fading. The mansion is no longer a map of territories. It is just a vast, quiet, sleeping structure. The separate scents of smoke and lavender have blended into the scent of the cool, midnight air. The separate rhythms of needlework and cigar smoking have merged into the single, slow heartbeat of the house. You are resting in the middle of this history. You are the point where the rooms meet. You are the silence between the leather and the silk. Your body is heavy, your mind is empty, and the gendered spaces are now just empty, dark vessels. The order of the Victorian world is a beautiful, boring memory. The hierarchy is asleep. The separation is over. You are falling now, away from the rooms, away from the walls, and into the unified, dark, and perfect peace of a dreamless sleep. The house is one. The night is one. Sleep now. In the center of the order. Sleep. Let the spaces be still. Sleep. We descend now, far below the silk-covered walls and the polished mahogany, down the narrow, unadorned stone stairs to the very foundation of the mansion. This is the basement command center. The kitchen. In the 1890s, this was the heart of the house, but it was a heart made of cast iron, cold stone, and endless, repetitive labor. As we step onto the flagstone floor, notice how the air changes. It is heavier here, smelling of soot, damp earth, and the lingering scent of slow-cooked stews. The elegance of the upstairs is gone, replaced by a world of functional, boring, and rhythmic survival. Feel the weight of this underground world pressing down on you, a heavy, earthen blanket of history that invites you to be still. Imagine the floor beneath your feet. It is made of massive slabs of York stone, cold, gray, and slightly uneven. These stones have been scrubbed every morning for a century. Think of the servant on her knees, moving a heavy brush in slow, circular motions across the wet stone. Scrub, rinse, scrub. The sound is a dull, grating rhythm that echoes off the low, whitewashed ceiling. It is a task that has no end. As you visualize that brush moving back and forth, feel your own mind being scrubbed clean of its worries. The stone is solid. The stone is unchanging. You are as grounded as the foundation of the house itself. In the center of this world sits the Great Range. It is a massive, black, cast-iron beast that takes up an entire wall. It never truly goes out. Even at night, it pulses with a low, dying heat. Look at the black surface of the iron. It is dull, textured with layers of soot and grease. Watch the tiny, orange glow behind the iron bars of the firebox. It is a deep, internal light. The range is the master of the kitchen, requiring a constant, boring diet of coal. Clink, scrape, thud. The sound of the coal shovel is the clock of the basement. It is a predictable, heavy sound that tells you the house is being fed. You are feeding on the stillness now, letting the low hum of the range warm your tired thoughts. The kitchen is a world of specialized surfaces. There is the pastry slab, a thick piece of white marble that remains cold even in the heat of the day. Imagine a hand rolling dough across that marble. Roll, turn, roll. The sound is soft, muffled, and constant. There is the chopping block, a massive section of oak, worn into a deep hollow by decades of knives. Thud, thud, thud. The rhythm of the vegetable knife is a hypnotic pulse. It is a world of preparation, of small acts repeated 1,000 times. Peel, chop, wash, dry. Peel, chop, wash, dry. The repetition is a sedative. It strips away the complexity of life, leaving only the simple, boring reality of the task. Look at the walls. They are lined with rows of copper pots and pans. Dozens of them, from tiny saucepans to massive cauldrons. They hang from heavy iron hooks, their polished surfaces reflecting the dim, yellow light of a single gas jet. They are all perfectly clean, perfectly still. They are the silent soldiers of the kitchen, waiting for a morning that is still hours away. You trace the circular shapes of the pots with your eyes. One circle, then another, then another. Your gaze is spiraling inward, becoming softer, until the copper becomes a blur of warm, metallic light. The sounds of the kitchen at night are the sounds of a machine at rest. There is the faint, rhythmic drip of the tap into the stone sink. Drip, drip, drip. It is a liquid metronome, counting the seconds of the night. There is the soft, dry scuttle of a mouse in the larder, a sound so small it only emphasizes the silence. And there is the constant, low hiss of the water boiler, a sound like a distant, sleeping ocean. These sounds are not distractions, they are the layers of the silence. They are the background of your rest. Consider the larder. A cold, dark room off the main kitchen where the walls are made of brick and the shelves are made of slate. The air here is freezing, smelling of salt, ham, and cold stone. It is a room of preservation. Everything here is waiting. The eggs in their wooden crates, the crocks of butter, the hanging sides of bacon. They are all suspended in a state of boring, peaceful hibernation. You are entering that same state now. You are preserving your energy. You are cooling your mind in the shadows of the larder. You are still, you are safe, you are unmoving. The scullery is the kitchen's shadow. A damp, dark room where the washing happened. The smell of lye soap is strongest here, a sharp, clean, and medicinal scent. The large, teakwood tubs are empty now, their surfaces damp and dark. The history of the scullery is a history of water and steam. But now, the steam has cleared. The water has drained away. The clatter of plates is a memory. The scullery is just a quiet, dark box of stone. It is a place where the work has ended. And your work has ended too. The cook has long since climbed the back stairs to her room. The kitchen maids are asleep in their narrow beds. The command center is on standby. The massive iron keys hang on a hook by the door, heavy and silent. The mansion above is a world of dreams, but down here, in the basement, it is a world of reality. a solid, heavy, boring reality. It is the gravity that holds the house together. You are feeling that gravity now, pulling your limbs down, pulling your head into the pillow, anchoring you to the earth. The shadows in the kitchen are different from the shadows upstairs. They are darker, thicker, and they smell of coal dust. They wrap around the legs of the heavy work table. They fill the empty copper pots. They settle into the grooves of the flagstone floor. The kitchen is being swallowed by the basement's natural gloom. It is a dark, subterranean peace. A peace that has no need for silk or gold. Your breath is deep and slow. It matches the slow, dying pulse of the range. In and out. Warm and cool. The stone walls are protecting you. The earth is surrounding you. You are in the safest room in the house, the room that feeds the world, but now it is only feeding your sleep. The copper is dark. The iron is cool. The stone is still. The command center has shut down for the night. There is nothing left to prepare. There is nothing left to clean. The history of the day is buried in the ash under the grate. Sleep now. In the heart of the stone. Sleep. Let the basement hold you. Sleep. We stand now at the threshold of a new century, and the atmosphere within the mansion has begun to shift once again. This is the history of the beginning of the end. The fragile, complex, and labor-heavy system we have explored is starting to fracture. It is not a sudden collapse, but a slow, rhythmic, and quiet withdrawal. The year is 1905, then 1910, and the world outside these stone walls is moving at a speed the mansion cannot match. As we witness the fading of this grand era, feel your own thoughts beginning to fade with it, drifting away like the smoke from a dying fire, into the vast, gray, and silent reaches of sleep. Imagine the grand drawing room, where for decades the invisible army maintained a perfect illusion of timelessness. Now, there is a new sound in the air. It is the hum of a single, bare electric bulb hanging from the center of the ornate ceiling. The warm, dancing shadows of the candle and the amber hiss of the gaslight are being replaced by this steady, sterile, and unchanging glow. It is a flat light. It reveals the cracks in the plaster, the thinning threads of the velvet, and the fine, gray dust that no one seems to have the time to clean anymore. This light is weary, and as you stare at it in your mind, your eyes feel that same weariness. The world is becoming too bright, too clear, and your mind longs for the softness of the old shadows. Let those shadows return now, wrapping around the edges of your vision, comforting you, and pulling you down. The invisible army is thinning. One by one, the servants are leaving the basement command center. They are drawn to the factories, the shops, and the new life of the cities. The back stairs, once a highway of constant, rhythmic footsteps, are growing quiet. The creak of the wood is no longer a signal of service, it is a sign of age. The silence in the hallways is no longer a luxury, it is a vacuum. It is a heavy, boring silence that stretches from the cellar to the attic. You can hear the house settling, the stone expanding and contracting in the cold, without the constant warmth of 20 fires to keep it supple. Crack, groan, silence. It is the sound of a giant going to sleep. And you are sleeping with it. Look at the bell board in the basement. Many of the bells are now still. The copper wires have gone slack. Some have snapped behind the walls, hidden forever in the dark cavities of the masonry. No one comes to fix them. The master of the house no longer pulls the tassel with the same authority. He knows that the response will be slow, or perhaps it will not come at all. The connection between the worlds is breaking. The mansion is becoming a series of isolated islands. This lack of connection is peaceful. There are no more demands. No more schedules. The routine has dissolved into a slow, aimless drift. You are part of that drift now, floating on a sea of forgotten chores and silent bells. The great coal range in the kitchen is being used less and less. It is a cold, black monument now. The heat of the basement has turned into a permanent, damp chill. The flagstones stay wet for longer. The copper pots are starting to tarnish, a dull, green film creeping over the once bright metal. No one polishes them today. No one will polish them tomorrow. The battle against the soot has been abandoned. The soot is winning, and in its victory, it brings a strange, gray peace. It covers the history of the house like a soft, dusty blanket. Imagine that blanket being pulled up over you, a heavy, gray veil that keeps the noise of the new century far, far away. The dress code of survival is changing too. The heavy petticoats and stiff collars are being folded away into cedar chests. They are becoming museum pieces. The people in the house are moving faster, wearing lighter fabrics, but the house itself is moving slower. It is as if the mansion is resisting the new speed of the world. It is digging its stone foundations deeper into the earth, refusing to change. It is becoming a tomb of the 19th century. You are resting in that tomb, safe from the frantic energy of the modern world. Here, time has no power. Here, the minutes are as long as years. Think of the library. The books are still there, but the leather is drying. A faint, sweet, and musty smell fills the air, the smell of paper returning to dust. You pick up a book in your mind, and as you turn the pages, the sound is like a dry leaf skittering across a stone floor. Crinkle, slide, crinkle. It is a fragile, tired sound. The knowledge within these books is becoming history. It is no longer useful, it is just a memory. Your own memories are becoming like those books, dusty, still, and tucked away on a high shelf. You don't need to read them tonight. You just need to know they are there, silent and safe. The grand ritual of the dining room has collapsed. The table is often covered in a gray cloth to protect it from the dust. The silver is locked away in the safe. Meals are simple now, taken in a smaller room, closer to the heat. The vastness of the mansion is being closed off, room by room, wing by wing. It is a retreating tide. The house is shrinking back to its core. As the rooms are closed, the air inside them becomes perfectly still. No one breathes there. No one walks there. The air is 100 years old. Imagine that stillness, a pocket of air that has not moved since the reign of the Queen. You are breathing that air now. It is heavy, cool, and ancient. It fills you with a profound sense of permanence. The exterior of the mansion is showing the signs of the end as well. The ivy is growing over the windows, blocking out the light. The gravel paths are disappearing under a layer of moss and weeds. The world is reclaiming the stone. The mansion is becoming a part of the landscape again. It is sinking back into the earth from which it was carved. This descent is the ultimate relaxation. It is a return to the source. You are sinking with the house. Your body feels like stone, your mind feels like moss, and your spirit feels like the deep, dark roots of the ivy. Everything is slowing down to a final, beautiful stop. The beginning of the end is not a tragedy, it is a release. It is the moment when the heavy burden of the grand life is finally laid down. The mansion has done its duty. It has housed the generations. It has stood against the winter. And now, it is allowed to be tired. It is allowed to sleep. You are the last inhabitant of this moment. You are the one who witnesses the final flicker of the old world. The gas is off. The candles are gone. The electric hum has faded. The silence is now total. It is a silence that goes back centuries. It is a silence that will last forever. Your breath is the only clock left. Slowly in and slowly out. You are as still as the statues in the garden. You are as quiet as the dust in the ballroom. You are as peaceful as the history that surrounds you. The end has begun, and it is a beautiful, boring, and perfect end. Sleep now. Among the fading echoes. Sleep. The century is over. The night is eternal. Sleep. We have reached the end of our long walk through the cold, through the shadows, and through the centuries. Today, we stand at the final gate. The Victorian mansion is no longer a living machine, it is a relic of the past. We look at these grand stone monuments now with a sense of deep, quiet nostalgia. They sit on the edges of our modern world like ancient, sleeping giants, their eyes of glass staring out at a speed they no longer understand. As we stand in the absolute silence of this preserved history, feel the finality of the journey settling over you, a heavy, peaceful, and permanent rest that requires nothing more from you. Your journey is complete. Imagine walking into the mansion today, not as a resident, but as a visitor to a museum. The air is different now. It is climate-controlled, filtered, and perfectly, unnaturally still. There are no drafts. No smell of coal smoke. No hiss of gas. The invisible army has been replaced by a silent, electronic security system. The house is a vacuum of history. It is a place where time has been frozen in a block of ice. As you breathe in this filtered air, feel your own thoughts becoming filtered, pure, and very, very thin. There is no more noise to process. No more stories to follow. Only the relic remains. Look at the drawing room. It is cordoned off with a single, velvet rope. The heavy silk chairs are still there, but no one will ever sit in them again. They have become statues of furniture. The dust we spoke of, the constant battle of the 19th century, is gone. A specialized vacuum has removed every trace of the coal age. The surfaces are clean, but it is a sterile, lonely cleanliness. It is the cleanliness of a dream that has already ended. Your mind is like this room now. Orderly, quiet, and cordoned off from the world. You are looking at your life from behind the velvet rope, and you find that you are perfectly content to just watch. The grand staircase is silent. The wood has been polished to such a high gloss that it looks like a dark mirror. But no feet will ever tread on it again. It is a staircase to nowhere. It exists only to be seen. This loss of purpose is the ultimate form of peace. When an object no longer has a job to do, it can finally, truly rest. You are letting go of your own purpose tonight. You are no longer a worker, a thinker, or a traveler. You are a relic. You are a beautiful, silent, and useless object of the past. And in that uselessness, there is total freedom. Think of the kitchen in the basement. The great iron range is now a museum piece. Its black surface is cold, colder than the stone floor. The copper pots hang in a perfect, unmoving line. They will never hold water again. They will never feel the heat of the fire. They are just shapes now. Circles of copper. Ovals of brass. You follow the shapes with your eyes, round and round, until the geometry of the kitchen puts you into a trance. The stone floor is no longer a place of labor. It is a foundation for your sleep. Solid, deep, and rooted in the earth. The bedroom we visited, where the ordeal of the bath took place, is now a display. The bed is made with historical precision, the pillows plumped by hands that follow a manual. But the blankets will never be pulled back. The sheets will never feel the warmth of a body. The room is a stage where the actors have left the building. You are the only one left in the audience. And the play is over. The curtain has fallen. The lights in the gallery are being dimmed, one by one. Click, darkness. Click, darkness. Nostalgia is a soft, heavy emotion. It is the feeling of looking at a photograph of a place you can never return to. It is a sweet, boring ache. It doesn't ask for action, it only asks for a sigh. As you sigh now, let the weight of the 19th century press you down into your mattress. You are leaning against the solid, unchanging history of the stone. You are part of the architecture of the past. You are a gargoyle, a pillar, a quiet, carved ornament in the great silence. The mansion is dark now. The museum is closed. The iron gates at the end of the drive have been locked for the night. The wind moves through the old oak trees, making a sound like the sea, but the house does not hear it. The house is dreaming of its own youth, of the fires, the bells, and the footsteps. But those dreams are distant, and they don't disturb the stillness. They are just patterns in the dark. You are dreaming with the house. You are dreaming of the long corridors, the silver spoons, and the flicker of the candle. But you are not walking anymore. You are stationary. You are fixed in time. The relic is at rest. The past is at rest. And you are at rest. The world of 2026 is far away. It is a ghost that hasn't been born yet. Here, in the relic, it is always the midnight of history. It is always the moment before the first bird sings. A moment that lasts forever. Your heart is a slow, steady, Victorian clock. Tick, pause, tick. It is winding down. The weights are reaching the floor. The gears are slowing. And now, they stop. The silence is absolute. The mansion is at rest. The journey is over. Sleep now. In the heart of the relic. Sleep. Deeply. Sleep.